everyone? Welcome to Kill the Cast. My name is Jerry, and joining me as always is the Silent Hill biker himself.
Hi.
And not joining me is the ever-quotable Jay. Unfortunately, Jay had some medical stuff going on. He could not be here, but because the show was already like 2 to 3 weeks late, he gave us our blessings to go ahead. As some of you may know, our original guest was supposed to be the new Brandon from Exploding Heads, but he had stuff going on in his life. He couldn't make it. So we decided, well, when you get the chance to upgrade, you just upgrade. So we brought on Watson from Horror Corridor.
What's up, gentlemen? That's hilarious.
Funny enough,
oh, man.
Watson's Skype message says, "I miss Brandon."
Well, I just changed it. It should say "Kill the Cast" with a bunch of exclamation points.
It does, but I saw it bebeforehand.
Oh, it did say "I miss Brandon." I don't know why I wrote that. I think it was a whiskey night, and I just wrote a random thing, and I wasn't even on Skype. So I don't know what the hell that's. But yeah, gentlemen, it's good to be podcasting with you again after so damn long. It's how long has it been? I mean, when we did the what was that? That was the Last House on the Left show. That was quite a long time ago.
Oh yeah, the definitive Last House on the Left episode ever made.
Indeed. And I'm sad I couldn't get the chance to mix it up with Jay. And can I ask you something about Jay, though, guys? What does Jay stand for? Is it Jay Kwan, Jay Crispy, Jabari, Jabril? Is it Jerry?
It is Jay Kwan. He actually is the one that wrote that song, Tipsy.
I know. He seems like the type. Well, rock and roll, man. I was going to say, if Jay stands for Jerry, that would definitely, there'd be a conflict of ideologies there. It'd be kind of crazy.
Hey, I already do one show with someone else named Jerry, and we don't allow him to be called Jerry on the show.
Is he Mr. Venom on that one?
Yeah, we call him Venom. I'm not going to call him Jerry with me being Jerry. That's just ridiculousness.
Yeah, I've never said my name to another. Kenneth, have you ever called somebody Kenneth?
Yeah, actually, we have a real close friend of the family whose first name is Kenneth, and it's always odd when I say his name. Well,
do you shorten it? Do you go like Ken or Kenny, or do you go straight up Kenneth?
No, I don't disrespect people by calling them Kenny or Ken.
You're a good man. I like that Southern hospitality you got going, homie.
What if it was Ken from Street Fighter, and he was like, "You're going to call this, or you're going to get this Hadouken"?
I'd rather take the Hadouken.
Damn.
That is freaking hilarious.
No, seriously, if people prefer the short version of it, then obviously, they'll introduce themselves as Ken or Kenny. But if somebody introduces themselves as Kenneth, then that's what I call them, because I actually prefer to be called Kenneth. I don't really care to be called Kenny or Ken. There are some people that have known me for a long time that do it. And when I first met them, I was probably too high to give a shit. So they still call me like Kenny, but there's only like one or two people that do it. If my mom hears it, she'll lose her shit.
Oh, way, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think before the Last House episode, I believe I asked Jerry, or I don't think I asked him specifically, but it just came up in conversation, like, and I just remember Jerry saying, "Oh no, he prefers to be called Kenneth." And I was like, okay, all right.
Straight up.
Yeah. Well, nobody in my life calls me by my first name. Everybody calls me Watson or some variation. Like, I think, maybe my mom calls me Dustin, but it's just not a thing. So, yeah.
Well,
that's what I was introduced to you as, though.
Yep.
If you have a good last name like Watson, everyone's calling you that. My last name is Herring. That's a fish.
Yeah, my last name is Harris. Only people that call me Harris, coaches in school.
Yeah, and Harris is slang for Bigfoot's penis. So, that's not true. I just made that up.
Oh, I was gonna say you learn something new every day. I'm gonna spread that though.
All right, from now on, that's the new
Harris.
slang.
Hashtag Harris the Bigfoot penis.
I was watching a porno and it really needed more Harris. I don't know what was going on.
Yes, yeah.
I was watching The Geek and all I could see was that Harris. Have you never seen The Geek? It's a 70s movie that's like a softcore porno about people getting raped by Bigfoot.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. I do know what. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen it either. I don't watch Bigfoot porn or anything like that. Don't search my hard drives.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Speaking of the 70s, I'm sorry, I have to. You never really commented on that band that I sent you. You know what I'm saying? They're not from the 70s. They just look like they are. Watson, have you ever heard of a band called Lucifer?
I have not.
If you look them up and look at their pictures and stuff like that, it looks like it came straight out of the late 60s, early 70s.
But they're current?
Yeah, the band started in 2014.
Yeah, and they look like Rob Zombie casted a 70s band with his wife as the singer.
I mean,
you're absolutely right. I see it now. Yeah.
Yeah,
How about
dude.
that?
It's crazy, and their music sounds that way too. I mean, it's just like if I didn't know that the band was from 2014, if you listen to the music, they sound like they should have came out right around the same time as Black Sabbath.
Oh, totally. I'm looking at a photo of them right now, and the blonde lady is got the what are those tassels off yeah, it totally looks 70s. And,
yeah.
The mustaches and the hair. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
dude. Yeah, it's great. So I'm like, they're gonna be here next month. So I think I'm gonna go try to catch the show.
Dope.
They're like a satanic German band, I think.
Hey, well, you said the key word for me, satanic.
That's the reason why I thought you might be interested in it.
Yeah, I've got to listen to them. I haven't had a chance today because I was working, and then I came home and ate a bunch of food, and then had to get all my stuff ready for the podcast tonight. Yay! But before we get into the main course, Kenneth and I went to a horror convention called fucking Days of the Dead in Atlanta, and it was dope as shit. And we met a bunch of awesome people, and Kenneth came in his pants because he sat next to Clive Barker.
It was awesome. Oh my god, it was awesome.
And it was, and we also met Doug Bradley, and I got to see Felissa Rose again, and she remembered me after 2 years, so I'm pretty sure we're meant to be.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a fucking awesome. And then my highlight was as I got to meet the suit actor for Godzilla 2000 and the suit actor for Ultraman. And I was so fucking giddy. It was fantastic.
Yeah, we had a really good time. We got to hang out and we got to get some cool shit and see some cool people and yeah, you know, hang out with old friends and stuff like that. We had a really, really good time. And I was literally I almost cried when I met Clive Barker. Like literally, I was shaking.
Yeah. Speaking of
which, I never get starstruck.
If this is your first time listening to the podcast, because a drunk Irishman named Murphy gave you our card, welcome. I hope he also gave you a shot of his whiskey he was carrying around because he was giving shots to everyone.
Oh, man.
But he was drunk, and Kenneth had the great idea to just hand him our business cards and tell him to go talk to people. And he did. He fucking went and talked to people and sold the shit out of us.
Yep.
What?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Well, I know that my friend James, once he gets to drinking, he will not shut up. And so I was just like, I just handed him the business cards, and I'm like, go, my friend, into the masses and spread the word.
Yeah. And shout out to Andrew. Andrew, I really wish I would have asked you this at the convention. I don't know how to say your last name. I want to say Hoekstra, but that just doesn't seem right coming out of my mouth. I'm sure you could have told me how it's supposed to sound right coming in my mouth, but I just don't know. But he brought me his Carnosaur book and let me hold it. He wanted me to take it and read it and send it back to him, but that book goes for like $100, and I didn't want to risk it getting lost in shipping. But he was telling me how graphic the sex details are in the book, and it was fucking awesome. So shout out to fucking Andrew for coming out and
he's great.
Me.
I've been talking with him. I love that guy.
Oh, he's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
him great. And I
shout out, dude.
Talked quite a bit. Fucking love him. So yeah. So one more thing before we kick into the podcast. Watson, for those who don't know who you are and what you do, which I just don't understand how that's possible, but, you know, the world's a weird fucking place. Please tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay. Well, folks, I am the host of a podcast called Horror Corridor, which you can find on the Horrorphilia Podcasting Network. It's a solo cast known for its high-quality production and audio, as well as deep, psychologically and philosophically oriented reviews. You know, people used to think it was a highbrow show when I started, but I don't take it seriously enough for that, and neither do the listeners anymore, so it's all kind of leveled out. But I've got a few more episodes left in me before I hang it up to go to the great land of YouTube.
But I will be on an episode before you call it quits. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's not quits until I'm there.
I like that spirit, sir. And yeah, I don't have any set time when I'm going to end. I just kind of know that it's going to happen within the next 10 episodes. And I've been monthly so far. So, anytime within the next year. And I don't know. I think, folks, if you guys want a show that, gets really super deep into I kind of focus more on the psychological aspects of the underlying themes and such. So if that seems like something that you'd be interested in, I mean, I mean, when you can take a look at like the politics of Ghostbusters in the Reaganomic era and blah, 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 and then just turn it into that. If you want to hear some kind of, sometimes it's not whacked out. I don't want to sell myself like that. It's all pretty professional and level-headed, but it's still fun. And hey, Santa shows up on the podcast every now and then and cusses a bunch, so it's not all just a bunch of smart people shit. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Santa,
we had fun over there. Santa was a dick.
He was a dick, and I just want to say, Santa, people do non-Christmas horror movies during Christmas time. Okay, I'm glad Watson put you in your place, because here at Kill the Cast, fuck Christmas horror movies during December. We don't do that shit.
Well, Santa said that you guys were rebels and I wasn't, so you guys could get away with that. And but then he pulled a swerve on me. And so, folks, my Christmas episode this last year, Santa showed up and did a what do we do? April Fool's Day, and some Valentine's Day movie from the 80s, but not the Valentine's Day movie from the 80s. So he came and mixed it up. I don't know. We have fun over there, and Santa loves you guys, but he don't have him on the show.
Well, if we're rebels, we are rebels without applause. So, but yeah, the show is fantastic. It breaks up with really, really smart. You will learn shit, and then you'll laugh at a story about some drunk blonde girl.
And then I have to cry because the show is going to be gone. I was so upset when I found out that you were stopping eventually.
Thank you for that. And the response has been bigger than I thought it would be. At first, no one said anything when I announced I was stopping. And then all of a sudden, like last episode, like 5 episodes later, which would be about 5 months later, they're like, wait, are you really stopping? Don't do that. But I promise you will always have content from me via YouTube, and I will podcast again to coincide with the channel. I promise.
Here's the way I see it. You're the Michael Jordan of horror podcasting, right? So you've killed it in podcasting, and now you're like, I'm going to retire. And then you're like, oh, there's YouTube. I want to go get on that diamond. So you're going to go and you're going to do that. And then everyone's going to, be like, Watson, come back to podcasting. So you're going to go win a fucking podcasting match with the Looney Tunes against some space Martians. And you'll come back to podcasting. That's how I see this happening. I've seen it before.
See, this is what I think is going to happen.
Oh God! What?
I think Watson's going to quit podcasting. Then it's going to go to YouTube, and then that big brain of his is not going to be satisfied on YouTube. So just as soon as my dick gets hard with you, whatever content you're putting out on YouTube, I am not going to get a nut because you're going to leave that medium as well.
Probably. No, actually, you will be happy to know that when the YouTube channel starts, and it's going to be called Understanding the Dark, and when that starts, it's going to be a shortened version of my show. And a good one-stop shop to get your spoiler-free reviews and your spoiler-filled deep themes. I'm going to have animation. That's what I've been spending all my time doing, guys, is learning how to be a competent video editor. So when I launch this, like my whole living room, half my living room is a set right now with lights. I mean, all pretty cheap. I wish I could afford like the grandiose stuff, but you can get by with if you know what you're doing, and I'm getting there. I just still got to – I'm not ready, but soon, gentlemen. And I promise, Kenneth the old dick will be hard.
All you need is a black sheet, a desk, and one of those fucking ring lights. That's all you need.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. You can make good content with that. Absolutely.
Understanding the Darkness, I think, is my favorite Atreyu album.
I saw Atreyu live in 2005. It's a fun time.
I haven't listened to Atreyu since their first album.
Probably not their first album, because they had 2 albums before Butterfly Notes and Suicide Kisses.
Yeah, I didn't like Butterfly Notes and Suicide Kisses.
Okay. Were you talking about The Curse? The one after that? The one that's more glammy?
No. Hang on. I can't remember the name of the album. You continue talking, and I'll tell you in a minute.
Fractures in the Facade of You, I think is the other. And then there's some porcelain one, I think. I can't remember nowadays.
I remember being kind of shocked because at that concert, it was a Warped Tour 2005. They covered a Bon Jovi song, and I was kind of surprised at that.
Oh yeah, "Shot Through the Heart."
Yep.
Yeah, I've had sex to that song. Anyway, so while Kenneth figures that out, so check out Watson. Fantastic podcaster. This is his second appearance on this show. And we thank him for coming on and taking on Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, and A Nightmare on Elm Street, New Nightmare. Or is it just called New Nightmare? I'm really not sure.
It's just New Nightmare.
Yeah. Yep, New Nightmare, yep.
Oh, okay. Wes Craven's New Nightmare, because he got tired of saying A Nightmare on Elm Street, but he really likes saying his own name. Or at least that's how I look at it. Did you figure this out yet, Kenneth? Is it lead boats and paper sales?
I don't know, because I remember when the Visions EP came out. And that was in 1999.
There's one with porcelain in the title, and then there's one that's like Fractures in the Facade of You. I just can't remember what the porcelain one was called fully. But, this isn't a Screamo post-hardcore podcast, so we're going to move on, as much as I would love it to be.
Everything on there starts with Suicide Notes and Butterfly Kisses, and I know that wasn't it.
No, they had two. They might have labeled those two as EPs, but for me, they have too many songs to be an EP.
So, we'll figure that out later.
Yeah, fuck it. If you know, let us know on Facebook. All right. Now, Jay is not here, but I have all his scores and everything, so I will be informing you what he rated everything, and he will not be able to explain why, but that's okay. So anyway, we are starting with Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. Jason returns to fight Tina. And Kane Hodder is his first time as the man behind the mask, Jason Voorhees. So we are going to start with story. Kenneth, go ahead.
I gave it a 9. I really liked it, and the reason why I didn't get a 10 is because I wasn't 100% keen on how Jason was brought back. I thought, chick using her mind and some bubbles rising up in the water, I just thought that was kind of weak. But otherwise, I really like the story. I like the fact that in this one, in the last one, we started seeing the attitude of Jason. Well, I think Kane Hodder really brought that to him. And so you got that, but then you got the reverse side of it where you got somebody that's actually kicking his ass. And so I really enjoyed it. It was kind of like a fucking horror action showdown. And I really, really like the idea and the premise behind it, I think originally this is where they were going to put Freddy vs. Jason. I can't remember. There's a lot of shit that goes around that. But I think they couldn't end up doing it or something.
And they ended up this one. I think 8 was the replacement.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think 8 was where it was supposed to be. Or something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, so that's what I think. I gave it a 9. I really, really enjoyed this story. I like the idea behind it.
I just burped and it tasted like I made out with Jason from this movie. Sorry. Watson, what did you give the story?
Oh man, see, this is this is one of those things where, Kenneth, this is your favorite in the series, isn't it?
Yes.
Ah, shit.
What now, bitch?
I don't care if you rag on it. Go for it.
No, but listen, you know my show. Even movies that I don't particularly like, I still show them respect. But like this is one of those films where I'm not certain how the filmmakers pitched this movie to New Line. Like it had to be like, so we've got this great idea where we'll have Jason stalking and killing teens around Camp Crystal Lake in the studio. They had to be like, homies, we got 6 movies like that already. What else you got? And they're just like, oh, well, maybe we'll throw a dragon in there. And New Line be like, nope. And they're like, what about a gay vampire? New Line be like, nope. What about an insurance salesman who's a ninja? New Line's like, nope. And then they're like, what about a girl with mind control powers for some reason? New Line's like, yeah. And then everybody asked, well, what about Tommy Jarvis? And they just was like, I don't know. Let's make this movie. So, as far as story, on paper story, I wish I could be as high as Kenneth because I know he enjoys this, but I'm at a 3 out of 10 in the story department because it seems like it really just simplistic to me, and they deviated from the formula only slightly. That might be a bit of a hard score, but I got to go with a 3.
Do you feel like it was simplistic for 1988?
I think it's simplistic for a 7th film in a franchise, and it feels like, you know, if it weren't for the presence of Tina, our mind control young lady, our lady with telekinesis, you know, I don't know what they would have done that we hadn't seen before. But
exactly.
But we'll get there because I'll rate Tina highly.
Okay. No, we'll see. The thing about it is the way I look at the reason why this story got such a high thing for me is because you're right. The 6 previous films were pretty much the same fucking movie, except for the fact that you got Zombie Jason and Jason Lives. Otherwise, the first 5, with the differences with the continuity, are pretty much the same thing. You got people out at Camp Crystal Lake. They're getting killed. They're getting stalked by a man in a mask from 2 on. You know what I'm saying? And so, what are you going to follow up that with, especially when you got such a brutal character as Jason? Well, you're not going to be able to have, as you put it, what was some of the other ones you had? What did you say?
Dragon?
Something about like a dragon? I don't know.
Well, you're not going to be able to put a dragon in it. So what is the one that's the most realistic besides Tina? What was the other one you said? Somebody that's a ninja.
Ninja businessman?
Salesman?
Yeah, ninja insurance salesman. I just don't think people would have gotten that too well.
No, I don't think so.
But, you know, in this particular situation, it's like, okay, well, what could you put in there to be a good adversary to Jason? Because Jason is a 100% brutal character. And so what could you put in there? And so the only thing that you could do is you'd have to have somebody that would have some kind of superpower. But at the same time, you're going to try to keep it in as much realism as possible for this type of thing, because obviously Jason's a zombie. So you're going to keep it in as much realism as possible. So the closest thing that you can come to is a person with telekinetic powers, because that is the closest thing that we have in reality to something that's as close to a person being a superhero.
To be fair, I think the people at New Line were just doing coke, and it made them think of Stephen King.
Paramount.
Oh, this is Paramount.
People at Paramount were doing cocaine. It made them think of Stephen King, so they're like, "Fuck it, throw in Carrie."
Yeah, that may have been the same thing, but you know,
I meant Paramount earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I didn't. Watson fucked me up.
I did. Sorry.
And so, you know, that's just the way that I look at it. And so, for them to do something that was different, and because then in the next one they just go to the same formula, except it's on a damn, you know, it's on a fucking cruise ship. So, for them to be able to do something different, I think this was a logical direction to go, because only something that has some form of quote unquote supernatural, preternatural, however you want to look at it, powers would be able to fight a creature like this.
Well said. Well said. I'm totally with you on that.
I just burped again and it tasted like the hairspray in Tina Mom's hair. Oh, fuck. Okay. So Jay gave the story an 8. And I also gave it an 8. There are for sure some things that do not work. The timing of how long Jason was in the water. The ending with the dad is fucking horrible. It might be one of the worst endings in a Friday the 13th film ever, besides Part 9. But other than that, I enjoyed the story and thought it breathed some new blood into the series.
Sing.
Yeah, I'll see myself out. I liked the whole Jason versus Carrie thing. I thought it was interesting to see something new there. While it still came with the same tropes of teenagers at Crystal Lake, blah, 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 titties and weed and, you know, all the stuff I like in the world. It was nice to see the final girl do more than kind of piss under a bed and beat him with a pitchfork, but to actually fucking fight back. So I really fucking dug it. All right, so we move on to character development. Kenneth, go ahead.
I gave this one an 8, and I think the biggest reason why I gave it an 8 was the development of the family. You know, the kids next door, they were pretty much your typical fucking slasher. You know what I'm saying? You had the stoner. You know, you got the fucking preppy chick. Blah blah blah. But the development of Tina and her mom and the storyline behind it like this girl having this power and not being able to control it, and killing her dad, and having to live with the fact that she killed her dad and what it's done to her. And then you got this fucking dick of a doctor who only gives a shit about exploiting her instead of helping her. And then you got the mom who's just doing her best to deal with the fact that her husband who beat the shit out of her died, and the fact that she probably still loved him, but at the same time, having to deal with the fact that her daughter was the one that killed him, and blah blah blah. All those things that are engrossed. I actually think the development of those characters to bring them to where they were later on is that right there is the story of this movie. Everything else is just kind of filler. I feel like that the rest of the characters in the movie are just filler.
Yeah, fun fact that's not true. Bad News Cruz had a son who was also a doctor named Decker. So, sorry, that joke was fucking dumb.
I'm just going to sticker at that one.
I don't get it.
Decker from Nightbreed.
Oh, okay.
Also abused his patients for his own end.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Watson, character development.
Man, like Kenneth, I gotta hand it to you, brother, for looking at this movie with such a wonderfully a thorough eye. I got to admit, I think when I watched this film in the Friday series, I don't think I viewed it as thoroughly as you did, or was looking at it to get that much from it. Because for me, I was just kind of like, do any of these characters have any development at all? Like, was that in the script? I will say this: Tina gets a lot of development and grows throughout the movie for sure, since she has to rise up to be a threat to Jason. But other than her, this is my second least favorite cast behind the character, or behind Jason Takes Manhattan. It seemed like all the side characters, those teens, were so forgettable, stereotypical, and just generally not fleshed out. So I guess I was focusing more on that than the family dynamic. So I'll still stand by my 3 out of 10. But I think that, Kenneth, definitely you gave me something to think about with the family dynamic. I like that.
Right. I mean, you could take those you could take all the kids in the house next door. You could fucking just take them out. If you took those out, the only thing that would be missing out of this movie would be the kills. Okay, but you have to have the kills in a Jason movie, so that's the only reason why they were there. The movie itself is between Tina's family and Jason. That's it. The rest of it is just bullshit.
All right.
It's just so.
All right. So Jay gave it a 7. And I gave it an 8 because I think it does a great job of developing the characters and how they fit into the story and the motivation of these people on what they're doing. Even with the side characters, you still have story arcs. You've got nerd redemption twice. You've got nerdy girl who looks like the chick that got her neck sliced while she was hanging upside down to bathe that chicken blood from fucking Hostel Part 2.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. She goes from nerdy, wanting to step up and cut loose and get the stoner guy away from her friend, so she's going to do this whole makeup thing. Her friend wants to cut loose and has never smoked weed and is going to party for the first time and relieve all this stress of how perfect her life is back at home. You've got the stereotypical blonde stuck up bitch who, daddy did everything for, who uses and abuses another nerd who, once again, is just trying to make it as a science fiction writer, but unfortunately no one wants to see a mummy in space, so that doesn't work out for him. But damn it, he has a date with a soap on a rope, so I like it. You've got your generic black couple, which are not as cool as Demon and his chick, but, fucking, you have to have them somewhere or else you're racist. So, then, of course, you've got the main guy who, honestly, we don't get too much development on him. They do talk a little bit about him being out there for his brother? I want to say it was his brother, who they were all there throwing the party for.
Yeah, Michael was his brother.
Yeah. So, I mean, they do at least give enough backstory to almost every character to give them a little bit of personality so you know them, which is something that a lot of times the Friday the 13th series kind of lacks on. So they're all there. We know all of their motivation. And then, like Kenneth said, the character development of Tina, her mom, her dead dad, the fucking doctor, all is super fucking well done and actually gives more of a backbone to this movie because you actually do feel for Tina and what she's going through. And I also can't blame the doctor too much because you know how much money he's gonna make when he proves fucking she can throw TVs and shit with her mind? Fucking buku money. Are you kidding me?
Not when he takes a goddamn circular saw blade to the belly.
Well, you know, hey, fun fact. Only time in the series that Jason used a weapon with a running engine.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
So there you go.
And believe it or not, I actually saw somebody. I used to think that was just something that was made for the movie. But since then, as an adult, you know, especially driving around all the time, I've seen some people carrying around what looked like a weed eater with a circular saw blade on it like 3 times.
Oh, yeah. It's the only way I can trim my bush hair.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we move on to pacing and editing. Kenneth, take it away.
I gave it a 7. I mean, it's not extremely slow in certain spots, but there are times where I feel like it's just like, I'm just kind of like, come on, you know, like there's just some scenes where I think it just kind of drags, you know, especially when they're spending time with the filler kids next door, because I really just don't give a shit about them. I just want to see them die and move on, you know. I mean, it'd be one of them things where I would have been happy if Jason would have just stood in the doorway of their house and took them out one by one in a line. But you know, other than that, so I gave it a 7. I mean, the movie could have moved along a little bit quicker in some certain spots, but it wasn't too bad.
True. All right, Watson.
I'm right there with Kenneth. A 7 out of 10. You know, this flick moves quickly, doesn't lag too much at any point. Everything Kenneth said is spot on. You know, such as it is, the story flows good and hard. 7 out of 10. Good stuff.
I love it when it's good and hard. The old hand job. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Jay gave it an 8, and I also gave it an 8 because this movie moves right the fuck along. It has tons of kills, has nudity, has random matchbooks getting lit on fire, which is about all I really need in a movie. So,
matchbooks.
We move on to atmosphere, Kenneth, with your sexy, sultry southern voice.
I gave this one a 9. I really, really like the atmosphere of this movie. It definitely has the tones of creepiness, especially when you see Jason or the victims and stuff like that in the woods. When you go out there, it's apart from the other movies. This one, to me, looks a lot more natural of what it's like to be out in the woods when it's fucking like just dark, and the only thing you've got is maybe a street light or a flashlight or something like that. Because when you see the light reflected off the trees in the woods, especially in this movie, because you know the cool thing about this movie is it never really says that it's summer in this movie, and so you can tell that this movie takes place in like the fall. And so when you're walking around outside in the woods during that time period at night, that's exactly what it looks like. All you can see is the light reflecting off the trees in front of you, and the rest of it behind you is fucking black. This one, to me, captured the reality of what it's like to be out in the woods during that time period at night, more than any of the other movies. Because I don't know, the other movies are the filming of being outdoors, you always see the lights coming in from far away in the other movies. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like moonlight coming in or something like that from behind the characters, so it makes the woods glow. And that's not realistic. The atmosphere of this one is extremely realistic in the way it looks, and that's the reason why I gave it a 9. There was just a couple of spots where I was like, so that's the reason why I didn't give it a 10. But overall, I mean, for the most part, the movie was fucking creepy all the way through it. It was good.
Dope. All right, Watson.
Gentlemen, this is a 7 for me. 7 out of 10. The idea here is that we've got this undead slasher killer in the woods, going back and forth over and over between these two houses by this lake. And they get it right for the type of film they're going for here. If these filmmakers wanted to give us a fun and cheesy popcorn film, they accomplished their goals, and I think it's solid. 7 out of 10.
All right. Jay also gave it a 7, and I knocked it up for myself to an 8 because I think it has solid atmosphere built by great cinematography. And the score does a good job of keeping the underlying of that going very well. We move on to scenery and set design. Go ahead, Kenneth.
I gave it a 6. The scenery itself was not all that. I mean, like Watson said just a minute ago, you got these two houses that are next to basically a pond. You know, the lake was not that big at all. You know, you're coming from the other movies where you've got this big grandiose fucking lake in each one of them, and then you go to a pond. This is literally a pond, and you can see it when Nick is throwing the rocks in it. I mean, damn, the lake that I grew up next to is bigger than this, and it really ain't that big. And so, you know, that's the only thing that I didn't like about it is you've got, I mean, it's almost like the whole movie was filmed on like, I don't know, 3 acres of land. And that's not really that big. So I really didn't care for the set design of it, the scenery of it. I felt like it didn't seem, you know, even though it didn't have the camp aspect of it. You know, which there are others that didn't have the campiness of it. Even though it didn't have that, that's not quite what I'm talking about. It's more of the grandiose look of the woods and stuff like that, where it gives a big area for Jason to be around. So you've got, in the other films, you've got this big area where he can stalk through the woods and stuff like that. And in this one, it just seems like he's going back and forth between these two houses and walking around in the woods a little bit.
All right, Watson?
I gave this yet another 7 out of 10. You know, we've got this rural lake setting. We've got the woods. We've got these two houses. I mean, there's not much to get wrong here. And like Kenneth said, the scope isn't grand. But I guess I didn't need it to be for them to make things look like they should. You know, if I were working on this film in some capacity back in the day, I mean, I'd be like 3 or whatever. But, you know, I'd feel good about what we did here. You know, 7 out of 10.
All right. Jay gave it an 8, and I also gave it an 8. It does what a Friday the 13th movie is going to do. The thing that actually impressed me, while the woods are limited, they looked so good with how well they were lit. And considering that's part of the scenery, that's what really impressed me. And so that's where that extra little bit of jab counts for me. So we move on to acting. Kenneth, go ahead.
There's another one. I gave it another 6. I really didn't think any of the filler people, their acting skills were really that great. You know, especially the rich chick. I was just like, no. That's about the best that I can give for it. I think, in my opinion, the two best actors that were in the movie was Cruz and Tina. Nick was okay. Her mom was all right. But for the most part, you know, I mean, it was a 6. You know, it wasn't even a hand job.
Fair enough, Watson.
I'm right there with Kenneth. This is a 6 for me as well. And all the points go to Kane Hodder's physicality, the doctor, just like Kenneth said, and Lar Park Lincoln's chops as a final girl. You know, and I don't know if I remember anyone else, though. So either they did poorly as hell or serviceable enough to pass the test just barely. So 6 out of 10.
Well, that goes great with my point that I give almost every Friday the 13th movie. Jay gave this a 7. I give it a 7 also because Friday the 13th continues its tradition with me of not being so bad that I hate it, but not being so good that it takes me out of it by saying, damn, that was a fantastic performance. Acting that stays at that middle line for me is a great thing because it helps me stay in the movie. If it's not super bad, it's not super good, stays right in the middle, I stay deeper in the movie. So it's something I've always appreciated about the series, and it continues that tradition. Yeah, we move on to special effects. Take it away, Kenneth.
It's fucking 10. The special effects were fucking awesome. I mean, the special effects for the kills themselves was awesome. The way that it looked, the way Jason looked was fucking superb, man. I mean, that was just creepy as fuck. I mean, you could see his spine and shit. You know, you could see his kneecaps moving when he walked. I mean, that was fucking superb. Overall, I mean, even the special effects when Tina was making shit fly across the room. I mean, all of that stuff looked fan-fucking-tastic. the stunt work that went into some of the stuff that Kane Hodder did as Jason in this. I'm gonna lump that into the special effects. That was fucking superb. I mean, just all the way around, it was great. I don't think there was anything that I was disappointed with when it comes to the special effects, other than not being able to see more of it.
Yeah, the MPA fucked this movie up. Watson.
Okay, so guys, sometimes in the past, when I would listen to your Horror Coliseum shows, I'd be thinking to myself, man, if I were on this episode, I would have little idea how to differentiate between this category and the kills and gore category. But for this film, these are two very separate facets of the movie for me. Like, I'm night and day on them, in fact. So special effects, gentlemen, I'm at an 8. Jason's makeup is impressively handled. Viewers will have no problem believing that our boy has been down and dead as hell in that lake, just rotting away. The way the effects team handled the destruction to the set that Tina caused in her fight against Jason in that third act, the famous fire scene that actually burned Kane Hodder the hell up in real life, the way his face looks under that mask. These filmmakers did a great job here, and while I don't love this entry in the series, I got to hand it to them with mad respect for their knack for good presentation. 8 out of 10.
Sweet. Jay gave this an 8, and I also gave it an 8. With so much getting cut out, that really hurts it. I love the way Jason looks, even though I do not like the way he looks underneath the mask. I will say that. The makeup's not bad, I just don't like the way it looks. The telekinetic shit is fucking awesome. The pier when her dad dies, holy shit, that is great. The decapitated heads in this movie look fucking awful. They were not. That was the one part where they were just like, they were giving us steak. They were giving us steak. Here's a bologna sandwich with decapitated heads. So I had to drop it down to an 8 for me. But Kenneth is right. This is probably some of the best special effects in the series, period.
Yep.
And I said Jay gave it an 8. So, kills and gore. Kenneth, go ahead.
I gave the kills a 9, and they almost would have been a 10, but there was a couple of things in the kills that I'm just like, oh, that's all you went with, and I think a little bit of it had to do with things that weren't being shown. That was the reason why, like, some of them were really good, like the horn to the chick's eye. I thought that was great. That was a really, really good kill. From an imagination standpoint, when he crushed her boyfriend's head from top to bottom, because that's what I imagine happened. That one was fucking awesome. Let's see if we can go into some of the other kills that were really good. I really enjoyed when he had dude impaled on the tent stake when Tina was seeing it happen inside the room. I really, really liked that one. That one looked really fucking rough. We can all talk about the chick in the sleeping bag. That one was fucking superb. It would have been a lot better. I think it was good for. I think that one was good for what they did with it. Even though I would like to see the uncut. I think I've been on YouTube and watched it. And then so that one was really good. I wish that we'd have seen the girl die in the when she was in the barn, the one that dolled herself up to try to get with the stunner dude. I wish we would have actually seen that one. But that was pretty cool. I actually really, really liked that whole scene in that part because I like the fact of when she's kind of looking through and you notice when Jason notices that she's looking through. I thought that was pretty cool. I like the axe going up the dude's face. I wish we could have actually seen that happen. I thought that him being in the lake and pulling the chick down where she drowns just by her leg, I thought that was fucking terrifying. But so overall, I think the reason why I didn't give it a 10 is just because there was a couple of them where I was like, like when dude goes to the refrigerator and, he just takes a fucking knife to the stomach. I don't really like that kill in any horror movie. And the reason being is because I just don't feel like somebody would die that fast that way. I just don't feel like somebody would die instantly from taking a fucking kitchen knife or a chef's knife to the belly. I just don't think somebody would die instantly from that. You know, I figured they would at least lay on the ground and suffer for a little while. But that was another scene that I thought was fucking fantastic, is when the lightning strikes and you can see Jason standing in the corner. Did y'all catch that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was great. So overall, I gave it a 9. There was a couple that I was disappointed with, but overall, I thought the kills were pretty damn good.
All right, Watson.
Yeah, like Kenneth said, the sleeping bag kill, iconic and solid. It's Kane Hodder's favorite kill in the franchise, so that's pretty neat. The party horn kill to the eyeball, I think the character's name was Kate, is my favorite in the film, even though it's not like the best kill because you don't really see it happen. You just get that good aftermath. But
That
other than
little
that,
honk.
yeah, the honk is, I laugh my ass off every time. But other than that, you guys, I wasn't a big fan of the kills here, and it's not the filmmaker's fault. It's just like you said, the MPAA butchered this movie to shit, and it shows, and it's but since it's all about what's on screen, we got 16 kills in this flick, 17 I guess if you count Jason, and only 2 of them stood out to me visually. I mean, like, that axe to the head and some of the, well, there are a couple axes to the heads. These were good, but these cutaways and aftermath shots are the aftermath shots are good, but I don't know, just like, what the hell was with how Jason went out in this movie? I mean, I love my exploding heads, homies, but whichever of them defended Tina's dad bursting through the dock and pulling Jason down to the lake, I think it was Brandon, possibly. I don't want to misquote whichever one said it, but no, like Jerry said, that's one of the worst scenes in this franchise and a horrible kill. And so, just because it's, and like I said, it's not the filmmaker's fault, but, because of what's on screen and because it was cut to hell, I gave this a 3 out of 10, but I know there's definitely an 8 or above in here, if we could get that uncut.
Fair enough.
I want to go back to where you were talking about where Jason goes down at the end of it. I'm not defending it at all because I think it was terrible, but the only reason why it was terrible is because I've actually seen a brief clip of what it looked like before. It wasn't the MPAA. It was like one of the producers who was on it. She was the one that elected to take the the decayed looking makeup off of Tina's dad.
Oh, do you know why?
It had something to do with. I mean, that was another part of it. There was not only, it wasn't only the MPAA. It was somebody else was on the set constantly undermining the director, and the director. Yeah, and the director of the movie is also a special effects guy, and so that's the reason why he wanted to have a lot of it in there. And the original makeup, you can find it online. You can find this clip. The original makeup for how Tina's dad looked had him looking like he had been in that lake for fucking 10 years.
Oh, man. Okay.
And that chick fucked it up. She got in there and she said, oh, I don't want him to look like that. So basically all they did was they took all of it off, all the work that they had done to it, and then the finished product is what we get.
Okay.
Now, all right, well, Jay gave it an 8, and I gave it a 7. Kenneth kind of already ran through the whole gamut of kills, so it's not much I can really add there, but I do like the variety of tools used in this, and I love axe kills, and the snooty bitch taking the axe and then getting thrown across the fucking room is my favorite.
That
and
is awesome.
Jason raising that axe in that door panel is one of the most famous shots of Jason. In fact, if you look at the cover of the NES game, that is the picture that is used for that cover. So,
nice.
I love it. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot was fucking cut out. So next we move on to Monster/Killer. Kenneth, go ahead.
Let's see if you can guess.
I'm going to guess you put a 10.
Fuck yeah, I did, man. This Jason was fucking brutal, dude. He had attitude. You could tell that he was enjoying doing what he was doing. He fucking loved it. He was mean as shit. He looked bad fucking ass. Kane Hodder did a superb fucking job at this character. I mean, it was just, to me, it was great. Fuck you. I thought the damn makeup underneath looked awesome. I love the fact that you could see his teeth grinding from where the side of his mask was fucked up. I love that. I loved everything about it. One of my favorite scenes is when Jason jumps through the window after Tina. I thought that was great. He didn't just
when he does the Spider-Man jump?
Fuck yeah. I thought it was awesome. He didn't bust through a wall. He didn't do none of that shit. He just fucking jumped through a window after her. He's like, fuck you, fuck all this. I'm just coming in. I thought it was great. You know, everything about it I thought was awesome. I mean, you could just tell, and then on top of that, you could just tell every time that she did something fucked up to him, he got even more pissed. Like that scene where he falls into the puddle after she fucking shocks the shit out of him with the damn wires and stuff. When he stands up, you could just see how fucking mad he was. And he's like, I could just in his fucking crazy psychopathic head, I'm gonna goddamn tear this bitch to pieces. It was just great. I fucking loved it. A 10 out of 10. It was awesome.
All right, Watson.
Yeah, you guys, like Jason is badass as all hell here, and Kane Hodder brings a superb physicality to the role that no one else, had before this point. As a stuntman, anything and everything was on the table, which is why we see Jason getting his ass kicked and just getting knocked around in some pretty terrific ways all throughout the film. He's more unstoppable than ever here in part 7 and just keeps coming no matter what. He's like the damn Terminator in this film, and I dig it. I gave it a 7 for part 7. Yep.
All right. Jay gave it a 9, and I also gave it a 9. And while I do agree this is the perfect undead Jason, I have 2 issues. I do not like the added breathing noises that they use in this film for Jason because they sound really weak. They don't sound beastly. They don't sound fucking like, they don't match how vicious and fucking just as much of a unstoppable force Jason is in this movie. And I never noticed that until this watch. And then, of course, I don't like the face makeup. I don't like when we see Jason's face, period. Have it in a sack, have it in a mask, keep it covered. I don't need to see it.
You know what one of my favorite stunts was? It's when he took the lamp to the fucking face and then fell down into the steps.
Oh, the Home Alone.
I love that.
I thought it was great. I love that one, man, because it just looks like just straight up that fucking lampshade just sucked. Hockey mask or no hockey mask, it just looked like it sucked.
I agree with you. We move on to Hero. Take it away, Kenneth.
Give her a 9. I love Tina. I think she's awesome. I really, really like her backstory. I love the inner turmoil that she goes into. I really dig her quote unquote, we'll just say ability. I really dig her ability, and I love the fact that she is like I said before, a formidable adversary to Jason. I just loved her all the way around. So, I mean, I gave her a 9 just because, the only reason why she didn't get a 10 on this is just because I think the acting was a little bit off here and there, but otherwise I thought it was great. I liked it. All right.
Watson?
So I was conflicted on this one, gentlemen. On one hand, okay, the idea of doing away with the Tommy Jarvis storyline in favor of some girl with completely random telekinetic powers. At first, it irked me to no end. It was so, in my head, it was so silly and dumb that I couldn't take this movie seriously. And I was thinking to myself, I'll probably never watch this again unless Kenneth and I can get together with our motorcycles and cuddle up in our leathers. But I think there's a sort of brilliance in giving Jason, like Kenneth said, a protagonist that can match him. And hell, guys, if we're here in a world where lightning can bring back a long dead corpse of a freaking mongoloid, why not have a girl with telekinesis? Like, why not? Lar Park Lincoln does a good job. She goes from conflicted to strong, thus giving her a solid character arc. I gave her a 7 out of 10.
All right. Jay agrees with you. He also gave the Hero a 7, but I gave it a 10. I think it's super underrated in this series. She has something that makes her stand out. She has the ability to fight back. She is going through trauma before Jason shows up and is still able to fucking fight back and do shit. I think it's not your typical final girl, but that's exactly what I need by the 7th part in this series.
Jerry, I think you're right, man.
Want, Watson?
I want you, baby. No, you're right, buddy. Like, it really is underrated. She is an underrated final girl for sure.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think people want to talk about her in the final girls because it's like, yeah, she's the final girl, but you put in the Konami code. We saw you do it. So she doesn't get talked about, but whatever. I don't care. I'm still giving her a fucking hard 10 inches that I do not own. Score / soundtrack. Kenneth, I am enunciating a lot here. Will you please take over?
I gave the score a 9. And the reason why I gave it a 9 is because in this one, it is, even though it has the normal tropes of a Friday the 13th film, there are things that are added into it that give it more of a dynamic. There are things that are added here and there into it that it fucking boosts it up and makes it even more scary and creepy. And on top of that, making it unnerving when you're watching it. There are more things that are added into the music on top of your typical, ma thing. There's more shit added on top of that I think, there are moments in the movie where if I'm listening to it, like if I was watching it with headphones on or something like that, there's just so much shit going on where you got the music going and you got Jason coming and you got people screaming and all this kind of shit that's going on at one time, and it's just unnerving. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of it, that they added those things in there.
All right. Watson.
Everything Kenneth said is pretty spot on. I guess I took a couple points off because I don't love, the only part I really don't like is the title sequence music. But other than that, Manfredini always brings the goods. I'm at a 7 out of 10 here. It sounds like a Friday movie should.
All right. Jay gave it a 7 and I gave it a 6 because for some reason the soundtrack had a lot of high-pitched noises, way more than normal, and I was not a fan of that.
That kind of goes into what I was saying. It's these things that are just added shit in there. They're just kind of, it's meant to make you feel uncomfortable. It's meant, and I don't mean uncomfortable like in a, oh, I'm going to tense up in myself kind of thing. No, it's just meant to make it be fucking frantic. And I kind of enjoyed that.
Well, some people like being, poked with a stick. Scare factor, Kenneth. How scared were you?
I gave it an 8. I mean, like I said, when I was going into the atmosphere, there are things about this movie that are really, really fucking creepy. Especially like the scenes where the stuff going on in the woods and stuff like that. There are things about this movie that I think are fucked up. Like when dude, sticks what's her name's mom in front. That to me, those are things where, I thought about, I would think about what it was like to be in that particular situation where it's like you see this big fucker with a hockey mask coming at you, and the person that you're looking at for some kind of, help or masculinity, whatever the hell it is, he's the one that, basically holds you up like a shield and won't let you go anywhere, while this guy, rams this fucking, basically a, like a machete on the end of a stick, through your stomach and shit like that. I thought that was really, really scary. But the atmosphere was probably the biggest thing that got me about it. That to me was probably the creepiest part. And the only reason why is because, like I said, I can relate to it because, strolling around through the Georgia woods at night. So, I gave it an 8 because there were other instances where it really wasn't. But for the most part, it had me most of the movie. 80% of the movie, so an 8.
All right. Watson.
Man, oh man. Kenneth, I wish I had rated the scare factor like you did, really putting yourself into the movie, because when I rated this, I kind of kept myself out of it. And so I really like everything you said. And so when I give my score here, it's not to disagree with anything you said, because well said, buddy. But, I think where I came from with it was, unless you were a kid when this came out, I'm kind of thinking of new audiences. And I was just like, I can't imagine this having any real scare factor for anyone new. It scared me when I was a kid. But, I guess I find it more fun and funny now. And I can't see the movie having, a real power to frighten, a newer audience, because at this point in the franchise, it feels like all that seriousness is behind us. It kind of feels like we're more in a fun fantasy land now, and you're either hating it because you're not getting the old, I guess, time when the franchise took itself seriously, or else you're just having a blast with it. And so, like Kenneth, which is I think where you should be on this, and sadly I kind of fell somewhere in the middle, so I gave this like a 3 out of 10.
Okay. Jay gave it a 6, and I also gave it a 6. Now, I mostly gave it that based on how pissed and brutal Jason is, but I also was like, well, if I was in this movie, I'd have psychic powers and I'd fuck Jason up. But then I realized, even in my own life, I'm a side character, and I probably would have died by by getting.
You're a side character in your own life.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have got psychic powers. I would have.
Oh, Jerry.
Got denied by a snooty blonde chick, and I would have been stabbed in the neck. So.
Well, but before we move on, I want to go back to something that Watson was talking about. I think where you were going into, the seriousness put behind us and things like that, I honestly think that that's what movies that are coming out now that are a continuation of a long-running series are missing. Because it's like, even though, like, you take the and this, we'll be doing the remake, but I just want to address this. When you look at movies like the remake and other things, they add, a lot of times the filmmakers want to add that level of comedy to it. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, there's instances in the newer one, and there's instances in other movies where, they have these corny one-liner jokes or something like that that's coming from the teens in the movie, and it completely takes the seriousness away. And I think that it's unfortunate that, the newer audiences can't get what we have gotten out of some of these films because of that fact, where it's just like, they've turned it into, what's the word that I'm looking for? The best way that I can describe it. It's so far deep into pop culture that it's turned into a almost meta, where it's making fun of itself. And I don't like that in a lot of times. Even though I enjoy these movies when I watch them, I don't really like it, because it's almost like that, like you said, newer audiences can't get it, because it's like, okay, when they watch a newer version of it, like the remake or something like that, and then they go back and watch the old ones, it's already been put to the point of silliness that they can't take the old ones seriously like we did.
Sure. Oh, well said.
And I think it's unfortunate that's the way that's going on, and I think that if you've got young people that are interested in horror, that are around, the early teens or something like that, try to keep them away from the way that movies are being produced now, and give them the chance to watch the older films before they get into that, so they can still get it. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some movies that get put out now that are still that still do their best to try to have that seriousness to them. Like, I'll give it to the first Conjuring movie. The first Conjuring movie has that. It's serious. But the long-running franchises, I think, the further they get along and into the phase of the new millennium, it's just, it's lost along the way.
Wow.
Getting deep.
Yeah. Jeez. Well said.
All right. Well, with that, we move on to entertainment. Kenneth.
I also gave this an 8. I mean, it entertains me for the most part, aside from the fact of, like, when the pacing slows down and stuff like that. When it busts off into the third act, that is always entertaining to me. Once we get into that, the fucking final bout, you know what I'm saying? That's the part right there where I'm always like, fuck yeah, let's get into it. That's where I'm at. So I get really entertained by that. So I gave the entertainment factor an 8.
All right, Watson.
Yeah, this is a mixed bag for me, guys. On one hand, I love the scenes with Tina and the doctor. Thought they're very interesting. I love seeing all that. I like seeing Jason do his thing all throughout. The mind control thing, while it's out of left field, and it's definitely entertaining, especially in that third act. That said, though, every scene with the teens in the other house bored me to tears. Even though the pacing was fine, they just bored me. The kills, because of the MPAA, were kind of a snore fest to a large degree, but I do respect that they shook things up a little to give the fans a slight variation on the Friday formula, and that's this movie's saving grace for me. So I gave it kind of up in the middle, like I give it a 5.
Yeah. If you were more organized, you wouldn't have mixed bags.
Jesus, Jerry.
Gotta make it so literal.
Oh, man.
So Jay gave this an 8, and I also gave it an 8 because I think it's an easy watch that keeps everything interesting and going, and really only gets hurt by the editing from the MPAA and that one producer, who I will not gender like Kenneth does. I'll just say producer, you bitch. So,
No.
so now we move on to rewatchability. Go ahead, Kenneth.
I gave it a 7, and the only reason why it doesn't get higher at this point is because I've watched this movie so many fucking times that it's one of those that it's a hit or a miss on whether it comes on TV, and I'll sit there and keep going through it because I've seen it so many times that I'll be 100% honest with you. I watched this movie when we were supposed to record this like 3 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, me too. I didn't do a rewatch.
I didn't do a rewatch either, and you can see that as deep as I have gotten into some of these subjects about this movie, that goes to tell you how many times I've seen it.
Nice.
That's true.
I've seen it so many fucking times, and so it's just like I got to give it a 7. And then after the I guess the tiresome effort of this horror Coliseum series, yeah, I'm gonna be Friday the 13th out for a little while.
Oh yes. All right, Watson.
So I was harsh on this, but not because of the movie itself. And so let me explain that. So I can see why people enjoy this movie, and Kenneth has definitely said his piece extraordinarily well. I dig it. I'm there with you. None of that's lost on me. But I guess, I don't even rewatch movies I love, let alone movies I'm just kind of meh on. And so, I mean, honestly, I might not watch this movie again for years. And, I'm not a completist. So if I do go through the franchise, I feel fine about just maybe skipping some movies and seeing others. Just because a studio backed something to get more money out of the people doesn't mean I'm obligated to treat it like it must be watched in sequence. I'm one of those people. So I was really harsh on this, but it's not because of the movie. It's just I don't rewatch films in general. So I think I gave it a 1 out of 10. But that
sounds like what Carly calls a fake horror fan.
Hey, I know what I like, and I know what I don't.
I honestly think that is the lowest score that we've ever got on this show.
And that really speaks to just my own rewatching habits. I don't rewatch. Like Ghostbusters is my favorite movie of all time. I might watch it once every few years. I'm just that way. I don't rewatch.
Dude, I'll put it to you this way. I've watched Ghostbusters so many times that I could quote it to you right now.
Dude, one day we should.
I mean, I'm being dead serious. Like, there are certain movies that I have seen so many times that I could tell you just about anything about the movie itself without the history of it. Like Back to the Future, all 3 of them. That's another one. Indiana Jones.
God, what a horrible trilogy.
The first 3 Indiana Jones movies, same thing. I've seen them so many times too. There are just certain ones, man, that I literally can put on, and when it finishes, like The Last Crusade, Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, I can put that movie on. When it runs through the credits, I'll restart it.
See, I wish I were more like that. And Jerry, when you go, I'd love to know how you approach rewatchability because, I even like I said, even the movies I love, I just don't rewatch films. And I find that, I do rewatch it, but it takes me forever to get back around to it. So when I approach this, I wonder if I should have maybe approached my rating to just like how would another watch benefit. Like how would that benefit like a second viewing? Say you see it for the first time, how would a second viewing add to your experience? Because I think people could have fun with a rewatch. I think you could turn this right back on again. I guess I was just speaking just from how I personally don't rewatch things, and that really lowers this poor movie to a score that maybe is, I'm not going to say unfair, but is maybe a bit slanted because of my personal movie watching habits. So yeah, I'd like to know how you guys see rewatchability.
Well, Jay gave it an 8, and I gave it a 7. While I prefer my original Jason, still living, I do enjoy how this film changes it up. And the way I look at rewatchability is more of like, okay, say I was going to sit down and do a Friday the 13th marathon, but I wasn't going to go in chronological order. Where would I place this movie on that list? That is where my rewatchability is. Am I willing to sit down and watch this one before many others in the series? And is the pacing good enough that the rewatchability is easy? Do I like the kills enough? Everything you've scored so far plays into your rewatchability. plays into what you get from this movie. Do you like the kills? Do you like the main hero? Do you like the killer? Do you like the special effects? Do you think the story holds up? Do you think, after hearing what Kenneth said, are other people's opinions on this movie going to make that next watch better? Do you have something new to look into? Yeah, and that's where I come up with rewatchability.
Oh, it's all about perspective. Because, like for instance, Hereditary, that movie. I'd only watched it one time. I watched it 3 times after I listened to your podcast.
Oh, wow. Man.
And so, yeah, I mean, and 2 of those times was back to back. It's all about perspective. Everything that you look at when it comes to that type of thing is about perspective. So, when you're going into a movie or something like that, you had made the comment just a little while ago about looking at certain things, if you would see things differently or something like that upon a second watch. Well, absolutely, because there's going to be some things that you're going to miss on the first one, regardless of whether the movie's terrible or whether it's fantastic. There's always going to be things that you're going to miss. And the reason being is because, let's say the movie's terrible on that first run, okay? And you're sitting there and you're watching it. Well, you hear other people talk about how the movie's great. And there's some movies that are like that, like there's some movies that I absolutely fucking hate and Jerry loves them. So Jerry tells me, oh, this is why I love them. Well, I'll go back and I'll watch it based on Jerry's perspective. And then I'll be like, oh, I can see that a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And like so, that. Yeah. And that's it. And then my perspective will change on it. Just like I used to be a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan. But then I went back and I watched it from Jerry's perspective. And I understood where he was coming from and why he didn't like it. So that's the reason why the Nightmare on Elm Street series has dropped down a few pegs since we've been doing all this.
Yep. No.
I'm converting everyone to my cult. Down with Freddy.
Yeah, so there are certain things where it's just like, definitely, if you have the time, because I know you're probably pretty busy, but if you have the time, definitely go back and watch some of your favorites, because there'll always be something that you missed.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, like, how did you not rewatch Krampus during Christmas time?
Oh, I did. I'm just saying that even, like, my favorite movies, like, at most, my favorite movies will get, like, maybe a once-a-year watch. But, like, movies like, that I rate, just kind of mid, I might get back to them in a few years. I'm just I'm just always on to the next thing.
Fair enough. It's the end of January, and 90% of the movies I've watched have been Godzilla films that I've already seen 200 times.
Sounds comfy.
I'm a creature of nostalgia. It's my biggest addiction. It's the worst drug in the world. And it prevents me from doing a lot of things. Like, that's why I don't do end of the year list for movies, because I'm an addict and I have to get my fix, and I need to shoot up some Vincent Price and smoke some Godzilla instead of going out there and being like, oh, let me watch this movie Revenge or Cam. Let me get clean. Let me be straight for once. And what do? I go back and watch King Kong vs. Godzilla. I watch Jaws. I watch John Carpenter's The Thing. I watch Matango and the Black Cat instead of sitting there and watching Terrifier or fucking something like that. It's a huge problem for me. I fully admit it. Everyone knows that I suck at watching fucking things, but I have a problem. I have an addiction, okay?
I can't say anything. I mean, when it comes down to it, there's a lot of times where one movie will link me to another one, and it'll be from completely different franchises and sometimes completely different fucking genres, but it'll link me to something else. And then when I start that one, if I start it from the beginning, I'm not really a completist, but it leads me into wanting to watch the next one. So if I'm watching some movie and it makes me think about the Bourne Identity, well, I'm going to watch the Bourne Supremacy and the Bourne Ultimatum. It's going to happen. And I'm going to watch them in succession. And then I'm going to find something else that's going to lead me to something else. Or if Jerry tells me that I need to check out something and it's part of a series, I'm more than likely going to want to watch the whole goddamn series if it's good.
Yeah, I'd do the same thing. Yeah.
And I'll sit there and I'll do that. I'll spend a whole day watching that. Like if I wasn't so Friday the 13th out, and one day I had the hankering to want to watch one of the Friday the 13th movies, if it started where it started, I would continue going through. So if I had the urge to want to watch, if I had the urge to want to watch Friday the 13th Part 2 for some reason, I would run through the rest of them with the exception of Part 9 and probably Part 3.
Yeah, I think those are the two I would leave out also. So I can't say anything. All right. So we come to our final category, pop culture. Kenneth, go ahead.
Give it a 9. This is one of the ones that is well known in the series. Number one, it's well known because it's Kane Hodder's first. Even though that's mostly for horror fans, damn, that's one of the reasons. Number two, the way he looks. That's known amongst all. Everybody knows this version of Jason because he's so badass looking. You know, that's one of those that you can't get around. Also, this one is well known because it's damn Jason versus quote unquote Carrie. You know, even people that aren't horror fans know about this one because of that. You know, it's the battle sequence of him fighting against somebody else like that. So I gave it a 9. This is definitely one of the ones that even if you haven't seen this movie, you know that it exists.
All right, Watson.
So, my friends and listeners and my friends here on the show today, so
I feel like this is what Watson says right before he disappoints you in the bed.
Oh, absolutely. I turn to the mic and I tell the guy I'm with or girl, whatever it is, just like, who's a good boy? Who's a good no? So
is it Cocker Spaniel now?
It's whatever is there. It's I don't know. So.
Poor
look,
Rex.
So this film, so Jerry and I talked beforehand, and Jerry was like, so do you maybe want to take a look at your scores for the pop culture sections? And I was like, oh, how come? And then we had a small talk about how we both rated pop culture, and I actually prefer, I wanted to stick with what I did, so that way any listeners who maybe thought of it the way I did could, so that way the listeners could go, oh, I think of this category like that, or I think of it like this. So when I approached pop culture, I rated it strictly as this is what non-horror fans think of this. But then Jerry was like, oh, well, we do consider how horror fans think of it. And I was like, damn it. Okay, well, let me just keep what I have so it can kind of differentiate. And so it can kind of differentiate things here. So, anyways, that said, this film gave us Kane Hodder as Jason, which absolutely resonated with horror fans. But, it wasn't a smash success by any means, this film. Total domestic gross out of just under 1,800 theaters amounted to little over $19 million. Not too good, not too bad, but it's the 9th highest grossing film in a franchise of 12 films. And I think from a non-horror perspective, that's very telling. I don't know if the majority of non-horror fans will know. They might know that Jason and Carrie squared off, but they might not know anything more than that or which movie in the sequence in the franchise it was. I don't think that this movie, separate from all that came before or after it, did anything that caught the attention of popular culture at large. So I was hard on this and gave it a 1 out of 10. But when you think of how it resonated with horror fans and launched Kane Hodder, if I were looking at it like that, I'd be pretty high up there. So I'll keep my 1, but I'm going to acknowledge that the way you guys are doing it is a really holistic way that I wish I'd thought of. So good, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I tried to warn him. We've had people come on the show, and normally they just send me. Okay, so before the show, I have everyone send me their final score, the out of 150. But most of the guests will send me their entire breakdown, even though I tell them not to.
Yeah, I didn't want to put you through that.
Yeah, so I saw it and I was like, oh, God, no, Watson. So I tried to explain to it, and now I've just figured out Watson has a fetish for learning. He was probably waiting the whole time to be like, oh, I can't wait till he lectures me and corrects me as he fucking twists his nipples. It's very weird.
By the way, I'm sorry about that loud-ass fucking racket.
Was it Fatty?
No, I had something fall over on my desk.
Wow.
Oh.
Was it a gun?
No.
A knife?
It was a gun.
It was a gun.
No.
Question is, which one?
It was my Glock.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Sorry.
All right. Pop culture. Jay gave it an 8, and I give it a 10. You want to know why I give it a fucking 10? Well, sit the fuck down and learn. This gets a fucking 10 because this is the Jason that's on the cover of the fucking Nintendo game. Are you on the cover of a classic 8-bit system? No, you're fucking not. Because you're a loser. Your mother doesn't fucking love you. Your dad wish you would have played fucking football.
Fuck
but
that.
instead,
Younger version of me is on the cover of Wizards and Warriors 2. Go fuck yourself.
Really? You think you're fucking Fabio?
Hell yeah.
Really?
Long hair and everything.
Can you break a goose across your face?
A goose?
Can you break a goose across your face?
Really?
Fabio broke a goose across his face while he was on a roller coaster. The goose exploded. He had no damage to him. He had goose blood on him. That was
No,
it.
I did not know about that, but hey, why not?
So sit down. You're not Fabio, bitch. You look more like the fucking Noid from Yo Noid from the NES. You pizza ruining motherfucker. Anyway. So I give it a 10 out of 10 because, yes, it's Kane Hodder as Jason. Yes, it's Jason versus Harry Potter. I meant Carrie. But more importantly, it's the face of the 8-bit NES cover. And that means a lot where I come from. So with that being said, let's break it down. I gave it 118 points out of 150. Kenneth gave it 124 points out of 150. Jay gave 114 points out of 150. And Watson gave it a 75 out of 150, meaning Watson came out the lowest and Kenneth came out the highest.
Of course.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty true. I do want to point out that The Rock is chained differently in this movie. It was an X in the previous, or it was a Y in the previous movie. In this movie, it's an X. Fix your shit, director.
Oh, wow.
And they even show you in this movie in the beginning of it when they're reusing footage from the movie before that it was a Y. And I just wanted to point that out because it irritates me.
Wait, what are you talking about now?
The Rock, it's a in part 6, it's a Y design wrapped around the Rock. The chain is, and in this movie, it's an X.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I still don't care for the way Jason's face look, and I don't care for the mask break. So there's that. So yeah, that is Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, and here we are stepping into kind of the dream world with A Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not called A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's called Wes Craven's A New Nightmare. All right, so here we go with A New Nightmare, and of course we go in reverse order now, so I get to go first because I always make sure I get to go first on the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Haha. But I will start off with story. Jay gave it a 7. I give it a 9. The story here is unique and interesting. It does become very predictable with having seen so many of these movies at this point. So it doesn't quite escape the Freddy formula, but it adds just enough, just a dash of actual making fucking sense that it really brings it up for me. So there's that. Watson.
My friends, I am giving the story a 10 out of 10. There is something, okay, absolutely masterful about the way this film handles itself in the meta sense of things. There's a juggling act at work here that boggles my mind, because what we're ultimately dealing with here in this 7th film in this franchise is the question of, like, what effects have these movies had upon the people watching them? And so by bringing this Freddy entity alive into the real world, so to speak, the filmmakers are breaking fourth walls all over the damn place. And sometimes they're not even doing that intentionally. Okay, take, for instance, the angle that we've got these Elm Street alumni playing themselves in what is essentially a horror movie within a horror movie that openly references itself time and time again, even to the point where we've got shots of this script that Craven is writing to exorcise this real Freddy entity, which also happens to be the script for the movie that we as viewers are watching. It's brilliant, but it doesn't even stop there. Craven's earthquake set piece in the first act was written before the very real Los Angeles earthquake that occurred while they were filming this. So the scenes where they're going through Los Angeles and we're seeing earthquake damage to the city, I mean, that's because of an actual quake. So we've got the movie world and the real world colliding and blurring lines all over the place. I love it. 10 out of 10 for that story.
Question for you. You said how these movies affected those who watch it.
Yeah.
This movie doesn't do that. This movie shows how does this movie affect the people that make it.
Oh, I mean, for sure, and definitely, and that's the part where the real brilliance is. But I think this movie is asking, I guess what effects, are these movies having upon? Well, I mean, the fact that the Freddy entity himself is this other thing that was sort of, Freddy is its incarnation. I think the power of it got its power from, I guess, it catching on in the pop culture sense and was kind of trapped there as Freddy. And I guess it wouldn't have done that if these had been like B movies that no one saw. So, but yeah, I mean, I would say the emphasis is placed, like you said, on the people making it and in and around it. So yeah.
Because the one thing
you're both right.
The one thing it says about the audience who watch this movie and enjoy it is two things. One, when we see Robert Englund come out dressed as Freddy for that talk show where everyone's super excited.
They love it.
And they love it. But later on in the film, multiple times, Heather gets accused as if she's a bad person if she let her children watch horror movies. And it goes to speaking to at what age do you allow kids to watch horror movies? And at what responsibility do the actors and directors take for creating such movies?
Oh, yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Yeah.
So I always thought that was a sly little jab Wes Craven put in there, kind of like what Dario Argento did with Tenebrae. So, very interesting. Kenneth, story.
I give it a 9. I really, really like the story of this. I think it was definitely new. It was a breath of fresh air for the series. So I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, you still got the iconic character, but at the same time, it was like the story behind it. It was different, but it was the same, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, it uses the Freddy formula. It just adds a little bit of, we're actually going to try and make sense this time.
Right. So I really, really enjoyed this story. I liked what they did with it.
Yeah. We move on to character development. Jay gave it a 5. I give it a 7. While it has a lot of characters, I wouldn't say it worries too much about developing them as much as it focuses on using them as chess pieces and uses them to develop the story instead. Even with Heather, they lay out what she's going through in the first 15 minutes. And from there, there's a little development as she wonders if there's mental illness that runs in her family. But for the most part, it sticks with she's dealing with a stalker and she's dealing with her mental ability with what she's going through currently and her movie past. But I feel like it uses less development for the characters personally, but it uses the characters to develop the story super well. It's more of this one's more of a chess game when it comes to character development. Because instead of developing the characters, I feel like it uses the characters to develop the story, which is maybe something more movies need to do. If you're going to have your characters push forward your story, might not be a bad idea to sit down and watch New Nightmare and see how it's done well. So
I think my opinion when you get to me, because I know Watson's going, but I think my opinion will kind of flow right into exactly what you just said.
Ooh, I like it. Watson, give us that flow job.
Yeah, well, here's
I meant
here's
blow job. Stop talking.
Oh,
go ahead.
No, so you know what? I'm at an 8 out of 10 on this bad boy. Just like Jerry said, New Nightmare does a clever thing by showing us an insider view, a behind-the-scenes look at the production of the films and how they've been perceived, not just by the public at large, but also by the people in and about the movies, with Heather at the center of everything. So, I like what you said about chess pieces, because we see how acting in these movies has affected her home life. We see the relationships she's forged with people in the film industry because of her role as Nancy. But most pertinent of all, as we navigate through these more mundane facets of her character, of the character of Heather, we watch as things in our life build up to the point, like, you know, a chess piece being moved that way, like a chess piece, where we see how Nancy is important in their real world attempt to shut this Freddy entity down. And that's no small journey for a single character. You know, the script really had her back, and it shows. Also, I liked the sneak behind the curtains. We get, you know, seeing the character of Wes Craven and the character of Robert Englund all troubled by this Freddy entity in their own ways. And that little boy, I mean, he had a few wonky moments, but Cage Creed sure knew what he was doing. You know, creepy little son of a bitch, 8 out of 10.
All I heard was Gage Creed, and all I can now think of is fucking Gage from Pet Sematary fucking slicing Creed's
right?
fucking leg open.
Yeah, Cage Creed.
All right, Kenneth, impress me.
I gave this one an 8 also, and I think the reason why is because, like I said, it falls right into what you were talking about, because you're watching the progression of this, because this isn't really a Freddy story. It's a Heather Langenkamp story. You're watching the progression of this person, the development of this character, I would say, as it's progressing through the movie. I mean, and how she's changing and how she's growing. And this goes into what you were talking about, because as she's growing, it's furthering along the story. You know, it's almost like it's a documentary in the day in the life of this person that's having to deal with all this bullshit. And so as it moves forward, the whole thing moves forward. Without her character, it wouldn't move forward. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, instead of having a backstory of character development, we've got a progression of character development. And I really, really like that, because normally, you know, you got your backstory that tells you what to expect and so on and so forth as we're going through. But in this, you don't have all that. What you've got is you've got a person who's a mother who's obviously going to be dealing with some bullshit, and the bullshit just gets worse and worse as the movie goes on.
Yeah,
and the movie itself gets worse as it goes on. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it falls right into what you were talking about.
With the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, I always have a few questions as we've gone through these horror coliseums, and I just want to know if y'all think my theory is correct here. Wes Craven was the one making the phone calls and sending her the letters burned onto paper. He was the conduit for which Freddy was coming into the real world to give Heather enough fear for him to be able to get in there. I'm not saying Wes Craven had control over doing it, but I do believe he was the one making the phone calls and giving the pieces of paper.
Huh. I never thought of that.
What do you think his motivation would be?
I don't necessarily, if he did it unknowingly, I don't know, but if he did it knowingly, it was the only way to stop his own nightmares was to finish this script, and the only way to finish the script was to get Heather to play Nancy again, and the only way to do that is to put Nancy enough on edge that it affects her head and will get into her life, which will then therefore affect her son. And as we've seen in previous movies, even though technically we shouldn't count them in this one because this one's technically outside of those, Freddy uses children quite a lot to get where he needs to get.
I can get down with that. That kind of makes sense.
Not a bad theory, man.
Yeah. And I haven't seen anyone else talk about this theory, because I was trying to figure out who the fuck was sending her that shit. Was Freddy already having the ability to get into the real world before this movie starts? Because she had most of those letters before the movie started, and she was getting phone calls before the movie started.
So what you're saying is it would have to be somebody who's in the know about the real world power of this Freddy entity. And
correct.
Who else better than Wes Craven?
Exactly.
Not bad, man. Not bad.
So
that's a good one.
It has
I think you blew my mind. Among other things.
When people come on this show, they get blown. That's what we're gonna. Okay.
The crazy thing about that is Heather Langenkamp was actually dealing with a real stalker.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought they just kind of stole the stalker story from Alice from Friday the 13th Part 1.
No, she was actually really dealing with that. So that was actually a way for her to bring some of it to it, because she ended up having to move change all her numbers, all the rest of that shit because of an extreme Freddy fan.
So this is more meta than
Yeah.
than I thought. Even with with the earthquake in there, that's awesome.
Yep.
Wow. All right, so we move on to pacing and editing. Jay gave it a 6, and I give it a 6 also because the first and second act are so fucking slow to build up to the third act. And the third act isn't even all that exciting, but hell, at least it all makes sense for once. But I do think they could have really... We got the idea of what's going on with Heather, but they kind of really shoveled it on there to get their point across, and I don't think they needed to do that. They could have made this movie a bit faster, a bit shorter, because this is the longest movie in the series, and they didn't have to be. We got the idea. We're not dumb. You didn't have to keep fucking going. So it was there was enough there to keep me interested, but I could definitely see on a second watch this being painfully fucking slow. So, Watson.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you that this isn't a nail biter from start to finish or anything of of the sort.
Oh no, I bit my nails, but that's because I was bored.
It was, just inadvertent because you're bored. But for me, there's definitely a steady enough escalation that never had me personally bored or looking at the watch I don't actually own, which isn't owning watches a funny thing to do in 2019. Like, I want one, but I don't know why I'm saying this. And anyway, look, pacing editing. We've got this actress who is embroiled in this dream demon mystery that's affecting her and her family. And as she goes through the film, learning one weird ass thing after another, it's constructed like a strange but careful puzzle that takes us viewers on an engaging enough ride. So I gave it an 8 out of 10. But I do agree, Jerry, that, it didn't have to be as long as it was by any stretch.
All right, Kenneth.
I also am coming in with a 6. There are just spots in the movie where it just fucking drags. I'm just like, come on. Especially since I've seen, this was my favorite in the franchise until I did this.
Now it's part 2, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, because I mean there are just aspects of this movie that I didn't like, but I'm completely with Jerry. The first and second act, it's just like you get the highlights, and then everything in between the highlights is just like, oh, I mean it's like it's a chore to get through. So I gave it a 6.
All right. Atmosphere. Jay gave it an 8, and I gave it a 7. Well, I feel like a lot of it's forced. It at least doesn't... Oh, I just burped again, and this time it fucking tasted like Freddy Krueger fucking ate food and then fed it to me from his mouth like I'm a baby bird. But it was all vegetarian food.
Are you my mother?
Yeah. He was like, have you had your spicy black bean patty today, Jerry?
I love Chipotle.
Okay. So while I feel like a lot of the atmosphere in this movie is very forced, it at least doesn't ruin it like all the other Freddy movies by taking you out of it by Freddy doing some just stupid fucking one-liner. So for once, I'm actually pretty happy with the atmosphere here. Watson.
I'm right there with you on that 7 out of 10. I find the atmosphere favorable overall, but there are stretches in this film where the Los Angeles, Hollywood setting didn't pull me into the horror this time around as much as I would have hoped, especially considering that we're dealing with a real world situation here that revolves around Hollywood types, right? On paper, as mental concepts, these things work, but, something in the execution just didn't get me this time around. That said, by the time we do arrive at the third act, it's pure Elm Street. Good stuff. 7 out of 10. Solid.
Hey, I figured out why you need a watch.
What's that?
Because then you can be like, it's Watch Son. Review movies. Don't even gotta watch, son. I'm always on fucking point. Check the fucking time by your watch, son.
That's why I need a watch.
Yeah, it rhymes with your name. So,
hell yeah.
Kenneth, atmosphere.
I gave it a 7. There were moments where it was kind of creepy, but for the most part, I mean, it was just kind of the look in certain spots where I enjoyed it, especially the look of the end of it. But that goes more into the scenery. But overall, it just wasn't. The movie just really wasn't that creepy.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Speaking of scenery set design, Jay gave it a 7, and I also gave it a 7. Everything looks good here. It's a little less of the Freddy world, making it one of the more blander entries. But there's some other cool stuff, like getting to go inside New Line / Paramount, depending on which one I want to fuck up on this time. Watson.
New Line.
And it was cool going on an actual set. That was pretty dope. Technically, we're on sets every movie, but it was the meta behind the scenes set, so it was a different set than the normal set you would see in a movie because they're not trying to be a set. Do you get what I'm saying? Set.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I only gave it a 7. Watson.
I'm at an 8 out of 10 here, gentlemen. The recreation of Elm Street, as well as, Freddy's subterranean lair in the third act, is magnificent. The scene inside that deep as hell ass coffin at the funeral, the 8-lane freeway set piece, the hospital, the Hollywood offices, Heather's house. From a design standpoint, the scenery accomplishes exactly what this film requires. Nothing felt off to me, but nothing felt grandiose either. So I wanted to give it a good, solid, positive rating, but nothing that was, when I start getting into the 9s, that's like knocking it out of the park. I don't know that this does that, but it's good. 8 out of 10.
All right, Kenneth.
I gave it an 8 out of 10 also, what Watson said.
Ooh. Well, using what he said is usually a good way to do it. All right, so we move on to acting. Jay gave it a 7, and I also gave it a 7. Heather's acting has improved, but she still comes off as very wooden to me. But since she's playing herself, I can't take points off for her having her mouth fucking open. So way to find a fucking loophole, Heather. God damn it. Watson, go ahead.
well, Jerry, I know you've been critical of Ms. Langdon-Camp's performances in the past. And in that first film, dude, I'm right there with you all the way. And I'm not a Nightmare or an Elm Street apologist like some folks are. I just took Lil Watt. Yeah. I just took Lil Watt through this franchise, and it was like an underwhelming thing. I'm showing my son, oh, check this out. I'm not hyping it up for him. Like, here's a franchise that I loved as a kid. Let's check it out. And I was like, okay, well, right on. But
were you not worried that Child Services would arrest you for, punishing your child that way? Isn't that child endangerment? Making him watch the Nightmare on Elm Street series?
He did say that of all the franchises that we've watched so far, now he likes cheesy Freddy because he's a cheeseball. He likes movies for the air quotes wrong reasons, but he said that this was his least favorite of the franchises that we've watched so far. But anyway, to speak to acting, I'm right there with you. I'm not as critical as you have been, but I understand everything you've said about, her performances in the other films. But I felt she did a damn good job in this film. Is it any real stretch playing yourself? Maybe not, but she was good. Little Miko Hughes is always haunting, channeling his inner Danny Torrance to great effect. I'll say, like I said before, he had some wonky moments here and there, but by and large, he was a talented child actor in his day. I think he was on an episode of Full House, but I might be lying. As for Mr. Englund, he took it back to basics on this one and gave us a solid, darker performance as the Freddy entity thingy. 7 out of 10 for me, folks. Good stuff.
All right. I do like when the little kid does the whole fucking omen thing at the playground. That was fucking dope. Kenneth.
I gave it 7. I mean, it wasn't anything that really blew me away, but it wasn't really anything that majorly sucked, I mean, and there's a couple of instances where it didn't suck, and that was unfortunate, because I'd love to see Heather Langenkamp sucking on something. But, yeah, she's hot, or at least she was.
Well, you know what? She did look good in that business suit in the beginning of the movie.
Right?
Black tights.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah, I definitely like the legs, and I don't mind her mouth being open. We all know that I have my my thing with chicks with bigger teeth.
I love you, Kenneth.
I'm just saying. I mean, I like chicks with bigger teeth. I mean,
I forgot to write it. I was on Reddit and I found out that there is a specific name for people who are into the fetish of women with bigger teeth.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I just dig it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, straight up. That's not bullshit either. That's not a joke. That's real. I
just didn't know there was a name to that.
Yeah,
I really do dig chicks with bigger teeth.
I meant to write it down and I forgot to.
I'm not talking about, where she comes out like Sarah Jessica Parker and looks like a horse, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, just that slight you know, where they got a smile and it's just, you know, almost kind of fucking cartoonish. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'll see if I can't find you a good visualization. I'll send it to you, Watson.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, overall, I mean, it was cool. It was interesting seeing people characterize themselves. You know, like that. Yeah, I mean, it was just interesting to see that. You know what I'm saying? Where it's just like, you know, you got Robert Englund who's being himself, but he's exaggerating himself, and then you got Wes Craven who's obviously exaggerating himself, and then you know, I don't know for sure whether what's the dude's name?
Robert
the guy.
No, Bob Shea.
Bob Shea. Yeah, I don't know whether he would be that fucking pretentious douchebag business guy or not, but it seems like that he was overplaying that up. He was overplaying that Hollywood persona of a, you know, guy that runs a fucking movie studio.
Sure, sure.
You know what I'm saying? So I got to give him credit for that. But there were a couple of, like, Miko Hughes, he was better in Pet Sematary. And the crazy thing is he was younger. You know, he was like 3 in Pet Sematary. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I guess that's a testament. I didn't really like his acting in it. You know, I realized that it was a kid, you know, a very young kid. But come on, man. There was a couple of things in there where it's just like, you know, when he's doing the voice of, you know, and like, where was it at? I think it was when he was in the hospital. He's like, never sleep again. That was just fucking lame, dude. I was like, oh my God, really? You know,
I like when he yells for his dinosaur.
Yeah, that and
yeah, a bitch just died in front of him, and he's like, "Where's my dinosaur?"
And that scene too, you know, where he's like reaching up and he's like, I'm like, my God, man.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, in the first movie when Tina's getting slit the fuck up, the dude at least did a better job reaching for her.
Right. I mean, I don't know what it is. There was just certain things that I've seen other child actors around that age do far better.
Yeah, I'm with you. I will say, the one thing I liked about Bob Shea's performance is the awkwardness in him skirting around the phone call. I thought that was a great little touch with her bringing up the phone calls and like, have you had any weird fucking phone calls? And him not wanting to answer the phone and kind of skirting around the whole thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, you got right behind that Heather Langenkamp's awful acting at that moment where she's just like, why don't you answer your phone, Bob?
Oh my God, and she does her wide-eyed fucking thing.
That was fucking...
oh my God.
For the most part, she did fairly well in this movie. That section right there was fucking terrible.
Yeah. I don't remember that author.
I've seen fucking wooden Indian chiefs do a better fucking acting than that fucking one. Jesus Christ.
Did you guys find it funny that we had Lynn Shay in this film not playing Lynn Shay?
Oh yeah, she was a nurse in the fucking hospital. And that was another acting job that I thought was terrible. Was the I guess the doctor? Yeah, her acting job was fucking awful.
Generic Whoopi Goldberg?
Yeah. It was awful. You know what I'm saying? Like when she sticks her hands up, you know what I'm saying? And she's got the scalpels on her thing. Why don't we cut this evil out of him? And I was just like, that's fucking awful. That is awful. It's terrible. I would not even find you scary if that was... To be
fair, that is seen through the eyes of Heather Langenkamp, which means the bad acting is Heather's fault.
Oh my God.
So, is that not terrible. Sound logic?
That's hilarious. I like it.
The same thing with when she's sitting there talking to her about, you know, when Heather jumps up and she's like, I want my son out of here right now. That was actually pretty good. I enjoyed that. And then the doctor comes back around with it with her awful acting and she's just like, as soon as we can get together the appropriate papers. I was
Once again, Heather's
way to
fault.
ruin it.
She was around Heather for too long. It affected her acting.
Yeah, but Heather's acting was good at that moment, man. I could totally
That's
see
because
her being
Heather,
a solid mom pissed off because she wants her son to get better treatment than that, and she knows what's really going on.
That's because Heather stole her acting talent through a basketball. Oh, wait, no, I'm mixing up Spaceballs. I mean, not Spaceballs. Fucking Space Jam again.
Space Jam.
And another scene that I didn't like was when what was the chick's name that got fucking drug around the ceiling? Julie. Yeah, I didn't like it when she looks at Dylan and it's like, help me, when she's on the ceiling. I for some reason I just didn't like that. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, when Tina does it, it's like, well, of course Tina's doing it. She's got dudes come inside of her. He fucking better get up and do something. This little boy's not responsible unless they're fucking, I don't know, into fucking Shotokan or something.
But it was just, I don't know. There was just something. It's not like I didn't think. I think that right there was kind of misplaced. I don't think there was something about it that just did not sit right with me. And I don't mean like from an unnerving because, she's a dead chick and blah, blah, blah. I don't mean like that. It feels like one of those things that's like, it was like it was supposed to be in there to unsettle you because she's asking this little boy to help her when she's about to die. And it was supposed to be unsettling, but at the same time, it missed the mark.
Completely. Do you think it was the hospital setting?
I don't think it was the hospital setting. Okay. I just think that I don't know. There was just something about the delivery, or I can't put my finger on it.
She did not have the desperation in her voice or face to match someone who is being murdered, and the only person they can look for to get help is a little child that they normally are the one that is in control of. They are the one who have the responsibility and the power to protect that child, and she had literally just did that by fucking straight up jaw-jacking a fucking nurse.
Right.
And now she's been driven to the point of desperation that she is trying to ask him for help as if he could do anything, but she just doesn't have the chops to deliver the line voice-wise or face-wise.
Exactly. If we'd have had Jerry on the fucking set to describe to that bitch how she was supposed to act, it would have been perfect. Because that's exactly what I'm talking about.
I would do that, but then Heather would use a basketball to take my podcasting skills. All right. I'm going to stop doing that. All right.
But yeah, I mean, Jerry just described it perfectly. It was missing that.
Yeah. All right. We're moving on because I can sit here and talk shit about Heather's acting all day. So we'll go into special effects. Jay gave it an 8 and I give it a 7. The entire time I was watching this, I barely thought of special effects. This movie focused to me more on story and atmosphere than most of the other flicks in the movies. And while all the special effects looked good, none of them are that memorable to me. Nothing really stands out whatsoever. I can name you special effects that happen in the movie, but I'm not going to sit here like it's Friday the 13th Part 7 and be like, did you see that fucking pier shaking? Like, I'm just not. It's nothing that great. Nothing that is terrible. So I don't know. It's a hand job for me. Watson.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with that 7, man. This being the early to mid 90s, you're gonna find a few shoddy moments here and there that don't necessarily hold up anymore. The Freddy entity in the cloud sequence is a little gnarly, and I don't know how I felt about the bony Freddy glove. Other than that, though, I mean, we got some good practicals with what kills we get, solid makeup. The scene where Freddy's stretching out his arm and unhinging his jaw looks good in HD. Good enough anyway. Those gross green pasty stairs Heather had to walk through as a callback to the OG film, that looked great. And just whatever they did in post to tie everything together as a horror film worked for me. Sometimes special effects aren't all about the blood and the makeup, but have everything to do with how you transition from one scene and into another to create an effective world. Like the scene where Heather and the kid jump in the water and then cut, suddenly they're sliding out of the kid's bed. It's good work. 7 out of 10.
Yeah. Oh, I also have to say, once again, Freddy extending his arm does not look good. It does not look scary. Stop fucking doing it. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Kenneth, go ahead.
I give it a 9. I like the special effects in this. I thought it was good, especially for the time. The thing that I hated the most was you could definitely tell that in that scene where all the Freddys run up against the side of the interstate that those are all fucking shitty looking masks. But the rest of it I thought was pretty solid. I liked the fact of him coming up out of the clouds. I thought the giant fucking glove in the air holding Dylan up and down, I thought that was pretty good. So I really enjoyed that. Absolutely love the sequences where Heather's falling out of the water as it's coming out of basically like Demon Freddy's face. You know, I really dig the special effects on that. I thought that was cool. I love the opening sequence where you've got the metal, the mechanical glove running around and fucking killing those two dudes at the beginning. I really, really enjoyed that, even though you could tell it was kind of green screeny, but I really, really liked it. I actually preferred the fucking mechanical robot glove over the actual glove.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. So I really, really dig that. I liked one of my favorite sequences is when the cracks that look like fucking claw marks come up in the wall. Yeah. That was one of my favorite sequences. I really, really like that. That to me would be fucking, if that were me laying in the bed and I saw that shit, that fucking shit would wig me out. I'd be like, all right. And it'd be Tennessee for me. You know what I'm saying? So I really enjoyed that. I also like when Freddy comes directly up out of the bed and, before she completely, before she completely immerses herself in the Nancy, I like when it comes up because you can see where the fucking top of the sheet's kind of getting a little wet from the fucking goo and shit that's on his head. I like that. And I really, really liked when the claw comes up and cuts the sheet all the way down and then she wakes up and then she finds the strips of the sheet in the bed. I really, really liked that sequence. I thought that was really cool. So I actually really enjoyed the special effects.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right, we move on to kills/gore. Jay gave it a 5, and I also give it a 5. There's not much here, and what few kills we get are barely noticeable. I mean, fuck. How many fucking people die from just getting stabbed in the chest in this movie? Literally, the first 3 kills are all stabs in the chest. And the second kill, not even a fucking inch of each blade goes into that guy. Not even an inch. I've seen fucking women take fucking a dick in their ass a lot fucking harder when it slips out of the vagina and accidentally goes in and fucking live through it. And this guy took a tiny, tiny bit. Like, you could find the most fucking homophobic, racist guy out there. He could take more of a dick in his ass than this dude could take those blades in his chest. It was fucking pathetic. You would have had to shove a lot more in my ass to fucking kill me. Okay? You would have had to Little Nicky pineapple up Hitler's ass to fucking get me. And this guy died from a fucking not even the tip of a pinky going in his chest. Get the fuck out of here. Nightmare on Elm Street is supposed to have creative kills. The best kill in this movie is a copy from the first one, but done not as good, with the only slight advantage you get to see Freddy do it, which I guess is kind of cool. But other than that, fucking weak. You get a 5. And you only get a 5 because I'm being generous, because I had this whole anal rant ready. Watson.
I like your your approach to rating this, equating the glove penetration to the anal penetration, accidental anal penetration.
Well, it came to me when Freddy killed the husband. He went and put a claw, just on the tip of it, on the penis, and was like, "Nope, I don't like penis." And it was, to me, it almost felt like Wes Craven taking a shot at Friday the 13th Part 2. I mean, not Friday the 13th Part 2. Fuck, I gotta stop thinking of better movies. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Kind of saying, look, guys, Freddy's not gay. And that could just be me thinking he was doing that. But that's what I got out of that scene. So I thought, well, you know what? Why don't I just take this completely off the fucking cliff and do just a rant about anal sex and penetration.
Hell yeah, dude.
To show my distaste of it.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? Anal analogy aside, I mean, I'm right there with you, man. You know, this film doesn't highlight the kills much at all. You know, we get those 2 kills early on with the glove, and I don't know, they're not remarkable in any way. And that second one, you're right. That's kind of egregious. Heather's husband's kill, you know, is good and bloody, nice practicals, but nothing we haven't seen before. Honestly, all my points are basically going to Julie's kill at the hospital, and you know, it's my favorite kill in the movie because I mean, what other kills are there? And it's, you know, like you said, an updated version of Tina's awesome kill in the OG, and in many ways it works about as well because, like you said, while we see Tina being flung around by an invisible force in the OG flick, we get to see what the Freddy entity rather, is doing to Julie, you know, both in the dream world and in the real world. So kudos to that. 7 out of 10 for me. Solid, but I mean, it's really just for that one kill.
All right, Kenneth?
I feel that was generous, honestly. Like you said.
I feel like you were generous.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, I have an 8 at this, and I don't know why. Because all the points you made are things that I thought about. So honestly, I don't know why I put that on there. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote down an 8. Because I know one of the biggest things that I was thinking about when I was thinking about the kills is they're like rehashes of the first movie.
There are 5 kills in this movie. The first 3 guys die by getting stabbed in the chest. Julie dies by rehashing Tina's death, and then Freddy dies by getting set on fire.
Right, and so that's what I'm thinking. It's just like I don't know where I came up with an 8, but I'm stuck with it. But I don't know what it was because damn, the best kill in the movie was Tina's, and I don't know. But I honestly,
Tina's, yeah,
Tina's. But it was honestly, I actually kind of liked the one at the beginning where the robot glove is kind of basically pureeing that dude's chest. I really like that. That just looks like it would be just fucking horrible. So I actually did kind of like that one. But I don't think it deserved an 8. But like I said, I'm stuck with it now. So I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, well, mistakes happen. Mm-hmm. All right. Monster/Killer. Jay gave it an 8, and I also gave it an 8. I really like that Freddy got a redesign in this movie clothing-wise. I'm really glad he inspired the Columbine shooting. I'm okay with it. I like less jokey Freddy. I'm not a fan of Boneface Freddy. Too much bone. I didn't like it. I wasn't a fan of it. I felt like it didn't sit well with me. It didn't look... I felt like they were trying to be more menacing. But it's hard to be menacing when you get kicked out of the Trent Coat Mafia for wearing a fucking felt green fedora. So
Agreed.
I'm kind of torn. I gave him an 8 because I do like this Freddy a lot more than all the other Freddys because he's not jokey. And I like the trench coat. I just don't like the fucking hat. Who the fuck wears a fucking green hat? He looked like he won a fucking golf tournament and was like, can you cover my fedora in this grass? I just want to remember this forever.
I want to remember this forever.
And I apologize for my Columbine joke. It was me bowling for attention.
Hey.
Anyway, now that I'm off my soapbox, Watson, what you got?
I'm at a 9 here, gentlemen. Like I think I mentioned earlier, the idea that we're dealing with this real world dream demon that's manifesting itself as Freddy simply because of the power of the actual films themselves and the horror paradigm that came about as a result of those films. That right there is every bit as brilliant as the original concept of Freddy himself as a killer who gets you in your sleep. Plus, the way Englund plays him here calls back to those first two films where Freddy really was a scary monster. I think the goal here was to strip away the jokey bullshit to give us a picture of the real evil behind the bone face of Freddy. And aside from that bone face and that hat, I think it's genius. 9 out of 10.
Kenneth.
I gave it a 7. And the 7 points are for the menacing and the backstory of it. I'm with Watson. I really enjoyed the fact that this is like a demon, the whole genie in the bottle aspect of it and all the rest of that. I thought that was really cool. I enjoyed it, and the fact that he was a lot more menacing in this one up until you get to like the witch sequences at the end of it, where he's like, "I got some gingerbread for you," and blah blah blah. I thought that was kind of I liked the idea of that, where they were going with it, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't think it was executed very well. The look was terrible. I thought the look of him was terrible. I'm with Jerry on the green fedora, especially when you watch it on Blu-ray. It's even more green on Blu-ray.
Oh my God. It looks like your uncle that probably touched you when you were younger. It's his Christmas hat.
Yeah, I mean, it was awful.
Christmas.
I did not like the makeup. You know what I'm saying? It almost made it made Freddy look fat. That's kind of what it looked like to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like the muscles coming through and stuff like that. The underneath, I did not like that at all. I thought the glove looked shitty. I did not like the fucking thumb blade on there. I didn't think that was cool at all. I just the sad part about it is it looked like Robert Englund wasn't wearing makeup. It looked like he was wearing a mask. I did not like it at all.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And the same thing with seeing fucking Freddy Krueger in fucking leather pants with goddamn 32-odd Doc Martens on. I just did not dig it. The trench coat idea I'm kind of on the fence about. But otherwise, I did not dig the look overall of Freddy in this one. I didn't dig it at all.
Yeah. Also, I mean, Freddy is known for his fucking glove. You didn't give him a glove. Like, it's like having Jason with no machete. Come the fuck on.
And I have seen interviews with Wes Craven where he straight up said that, maybe he should have went a different direction with the makeup. Of how the concept design of how Freddy looked in this one. He even straight up said it. So, it's one of those things.
Hey, you hear that, Adam Marcus? You can admit you fucked up as a director. Can you believe it?
He totally should.
Holy shit. It's a miracle.
Amen to that.
All right, we move on to Hero. Jay gave it a 6. I gave it a 7 because it's Heather being Nancy, being Heather, being Nancy, being Heather, and I was okay with it. It's about all I fucking got there. Watson.
Jerry, I'm right there at a 7 with you, buddy. I think incorporating a real world Heather Langenkamp as an actress, transforming her into the Nancy character, I think that stuff is incredibly sharp. I like it. I'm down with her distress as a mother who will do anything for her son. She's definitely the strongest and most realistic she's ever been here as she seeks to rid her life of this Freddy Dream Demon real world thingy. 7 from me. Solid stuff.
Yeah. Kenneth.
She got a 7 from me also. I mean, it was cool. I like the motherly aspect of it. You know what I'm saying and whatnot. But, it wasn't the greatest. There's really not a whole lot I can go into with it. It got a 7 from me.
All right. Score soundtrack. Jay gave it a 7. I gave it a 6 because I didn't really notice it, and I could not tell you a single song or a piece in the movie where I can remember the music. So I just gave it a 6 because it obviously didn't do anything to take me out of the movie. So that's not that bad, I guess. Watson.
Yeah, Jerry, I'm a little lower than you. I'm at a 5, but everything you said is exactly where I was on this. Aside from that, this time around watching it, I noticed that when they appeared on the daytime talk show, you get that version of the Elm Street theme, and it's this weird, just like Ellen DeGeneres version of the Elm Street song, and I thought that was pretty funny and it entertained me. But yeah, I can't say I noticed much about this film's music, and I'm a music guy. I can say though that there are examples of some over-dramatic score here and there where it's coming off like you mentioned The Omen earlier, and I was thinking, it's like when it's actually that scene in the playground. It's like this epic, music, and I'm just like, this ain't The Omen, bitch. Like, get leave that at home. Like 5 out of 10.
All right, Kenneth.
I'm coming in with an 8. I liked the score on this. It was definitely different. I don't know how y'all missed it. I actually really enjoyed the scope of the orchestral aspects of it, especially in that scene and stuff like that, because what they were trying to convey with this movie is they were trying to convey, even though it was executed poorly in certain spots, that what they were trying to convey with this movie is that it was the scope of this, that it was different, it was a bigger scale, and so they added that stuff in it. Not to mention that at the end of it, when the credits start coming in, I really, really enjoyed that part of it too. Actually, you can hear it when fucking Freddy, that spot that I like where he comes up in the sheets and then she says, yes, daddy, or whatever, and fully embodies the Nancy character again, and he fucking rips himself out. You can hear something that's completely different. It's that that. It's great. I think it was fucking fantastic. It goes away from that weird piano kind of synthesized thing that was in the first ones that we all know and love. It went beyond that, and it gave it more of an underneath push. I really, really liked it. It took it in a different direction, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I gave it an 8.
I guess I probably would have heard it more if it wasn't all getting sucked into Heather's mouth.
And again, unfortunately, I didn't get to see anything getting sucked into her mouth.
Yeah. All right. Scare factor. Jay gave it a 7, and I gave it a 6 because, to me, the scariest part of this movie is the relationship she has with her son, and her son being creepy and sleepwalking. And he sleepwalks, as you later on admit in the fucking movie, yet you run and wake him up while he's sleepwalking, even though everyone knows you don't do that to someone who's fucking sleepwalking.
It's a myth.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, way to make me sound fucking stupid, Kenneth. I'm not Watson. I don't have a learning fetish. I want to be right all the time fetish. Damn it. Never mind.
You're welcome.
I fucking... Watson, say something.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that about the sleepwalking thing either. No, so scare factor. So this was a hard one for me because I rarely experienced fear whilst watching horror. But as a kid, when I had seen this movie a couple times, Heather's son's performance always just sketched me out. Plus, the fact that Freddy isn't telling jokes anymore made him feel that much more sinister, which is good. However, I don't think this movie will scare. And I'm like last time with the Friday movie, with the New Blood. I'm kind of looking at how would a new audience perceive this? And I don't think this film would scare kids in this day and age because films like this are really a product of their time and place in horror. And this one specifically is a product of its time and place in its own franchise, which from my personal subjective perspective isn't necessarily all that strong, for new audiences. So props to this movie for going back to basics and making Freddy serious again. So I gave it a 6.
All right, Kenneth.
We are at scare. I gave it a 6. It's not really that scary. It's an entertaining watch. I mean, and the story is interesting, but other than that, it's really just not that scary. And, even when I watched it back in the day, believe it or not, when I was going through my my phase of absolutely being terrified of Freddy Krueger when I was a kid, this was the first movie that I watched that brought me out of that in the whole series. So, but it just wasn't. It wasn't that scary at all. So, I mean, I gave it a 6, and that was kind of me being generous.
All right. Entertainment. Jay gave it a 7. I gave it a 6. I mostly found the movie boring, and it overplayed the mother-son going crazy for just too long. That could have been shortened to shorten the movie, to bring out the pacing and editing. While I do enjoy the story, it is a long, long trip to hell. And the devil don't suck as good a dick as he promised. That's all I'm saying. And that's coming from a Satanist, so I know what I'm talking about. Watson.
So, I actually had this at a 6, and then I bumped it up to a 7, and then I bumped it up to an 8. And here's why. Because I love meta horror. The Rise of Leslie Vernon, Cabin in the Woods, Scream, You Might Be the Killer, Rubber, Funny Games, all those, these things speak to me when they're done in an intelligent way. And New Nightmare does this aspect of its mystery and its plot correctly. I think there are aspects of it like that do get slow and convoluted a little bit, maybe a little inaccessible to some like maybe newer viewers who aren't as maybe familiar with, I guess meta horror or whatnot. But I found myself pretty entertained enough to give it an 8.
All right, Kenneth.
I'll also coming in with an 8. I mean, I thought it was fairly entertaining. It's one of those that I will probably, for the most part, comes across on TV. I'll probably end up leaving it on there. So it's fairly entertaining. I enjoy it. I try to look for different things that I may have missed on previous watches, just in case there's any kind of bullshit lied in there. But other than that, it's fairly entertaining. I'll give it an 8.
All right. We move on to rewatchability. Jay gave it a 7. I give it a 5. It is just way too slow for my taste, and the payoff really is not worth it. Plus, I really don't like the fact that it pulls a Marley in me. The death of Rex is just too hard to watch over and over. Watson, rewatchability.
Yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 10. I already said before when we looked at the New Blood, I'm terrible with rewatches. That said, it's funny because I was harsh on that one, but it looks like in my breakdown here, I gave this a little more leeway that I maybe should have given the New Blood in this way, because if I could get a little more objective, I think if you're into this story, if you watch it once not really knowing what you're getting into, and then if you give it another watch soon thereafter knowing how Craven wanted to tie Freddy into the real world, and if you're keeping a close eye on how he goes about doing that, I think a single rewatch could be rewarding. So, yeah, I gave that a 5 out of 10.
All right.
Kenneth.
I give it a 6. I mean, it's one of those that, when it really comes down to it, it is slow. So the rewatchability, would I go out of my way to rewatch it? Probably not. But, it's one of those movies where it could be a hit or a miss. So I gave it a 6.
All right. We move on to pop culture. Jay gave it a 6, and I also gave it a 6. All I could think of while watching this was, this was his practice one for Scream. Meta horror, talking about how horror movies affect their fans. It really did seem like after this movie, he just sat down and was like, I can do it better. And with that, he went on to do Scream. And I think in the real world, the non-horror world, I don't think anyone remembers this Freddy. But I do think they remember Scream, and I think they have this Freddy to thank for it, this movie to thank for it. And in the horror community, New Nightmares held pretty fucking high. People seem to really, really like this one. And I will say, I think part of it's because of how fucking bad the couple of parts before it are. But, and I think anytime you have a franchise that's run that low and then has something that fucking comes back and hits real high, I think that's going to give it more reverence than it normally would have had. So with that, I kind of bounced everything around. I rolled a 6-sided dice that had 6 on every side, and whatever it landed on is what I let it be. So Watson, what do you got?
Jerry, I like what you said about this being a precursor to Scream. We in the horror community know that to be the case. But, the general public who will, non-horror fans know what Scream was. And you're right. They absolutely have this film to thank for it. Kind of like, if you think of the Frighteners, the people who love Lord of the Rings have the Frighteners to thank for it. So in that case,
and The Frighteners is a better movie than all 3 of the Lord of the Rings and all 3 Hobbit movies rolled up, smoked as one and combined.
I love you, Jerry. Yeah, I mean, but this was yet again a case where I approached this pop culture category just in the spirit of what do non-horror fans think of it. And you're absolutely right. Had I considered the reverence that horror fans do have for this, because they do, just like you said, man, coming off a lot of these sequels, people saw New Nightmare and was like, this is a step up. So if I'd been thinking about that, my number would be a lot higher than it is. But speaking to how I approached pop culture, so unlike its predecessors, this wasn't a smash hit by any stretch of the imagination. You know, during its theater run, it didn't even gross 20 million worldwide. This is a Freddy movie, and it didn't get those numbers. Made a little over 6 million in its opening weekend, so that should tell you even how horror fans took it, at least opening weekend. But this category to me has, you know, little to do with the horror fans, like I said. So it's more to do with how the popular culture at large received it. Non-horror fans, Jerry, like you said, won't know this Freddy Krueger at all. Non-horror fans will know absolutely nothing about this movie. In many ways, the franchise was done at this point, which is why it was 9 years before we saw another appearance from Freddy and Freddy vs. Jason. As far as how I approached pop culture, and like I said earlier, I wished I'd done it like you guys did it, but for those who maybe think of it like I do, just non-horror fans only, I gave it a 1 out of 10, and I'm sad to have done so.
That was a really long-winded way to tell me you disappoint me.
And that's how it'll always go. I'll definitely give you a speech before I basically say sorry, Jerry. Sorry for that non-blow job. Sorry.
Kenneth, go ahead.
And I completely disagree. I do.
Awesome.
The thing about it is I, you know, taking into consideration horror fans and stuff like that, you know, that definitely bumped it up. But I remember when this movie came out. And how old are you, Watson?
I'm 34.
Do you remember when it came out?
I do remember, but none of my non-horror fans know anything about this flick.
Yeah, I remember when it came out, and I remember everybody talking about it when it came out. Not as much as Freddy's Dead, obviously, but I remember everybody around me, like family members and stuff like that, and kids at school, everybody talking about a new Freddy finally coming out. And I remember it being really, really popular. I think that the popularity for it grew when it came out on VHS, because I don't think that a lot of people went and saw it in a theater just because of how terrible Freddy's Dead was, in accordance to the amount of hype that Freddy's Dead got, because Freddy's Dead got a huge amount of hype. And then the movie turned out.
I remember seeing it on TV a lot, TBS and TNT and USA and Sci-Fi Channel. I remember it popping up a lot on those channels.
Oh, this was on in the gym the other night, like on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I mean, but back then, you know, like I said, I think the hype came with the VHS, because in the theater, everybody was just like, people were disappointed with Freddy's Dead, especially with the amount of hype that was behind the, you know, the funeral ceremony that they had and all the rest of this shit, you know, everything that they had done to promote Freddy's Dead. And then on top of that, the 3D aspect of it. And then people were just disappointed. So I think what happened at that time in 1994 was the fact that people, they didn't want to invest in something like that, and at this time period, you know, you started having to where being able to go and get VHSs was a lot more readily accessible than it was at the time, than it was beforehand, and so on and so forth. So I think that this one, the reason why I gave it a 9 is because of its popularity didn't come until later. It's one of those that grew at the time in 1994 and 95. That's where it grew. It
sure,
grew
like The Thing. Like, kind of like The Thing. Yeah, okay, I feel you.
Right, and so I remember everybody talking about it, and I also remember when I watched it, it was on VHS. You know, we ended up renting it when everybody else was renting it, so it was one of those things where it definitely grew its popularity then. And I think the younger generation of non-horror fans, you know what I'm saying, probably wouldn't for now. But the older generation of non-horror fans, I know a lot of them that know this movie. And so I guess it would be one of those things that's maybe more regional, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but I remember it having a lot of popularity. So I gave it a 9.
Nice.
Damn. All right. Well, here we go. The breakdown goes as this. I gave it a 99 out of 150. Kenneth gave it a 113. Jay gave it a 101. And Watson gave it a 103. Which means Friday the 13th wins against Nightmare on Elm Street. 431 versus 416. Friday won by a mere 15 points.
Oh, wow.
So that's good. But as with all Nightmare movies, let me check and make sure I don't have anything else I need to say about this movie. Heather needs a gun. This is a pro-Second Amendment movie. Someone get Heather a gun, and she won't have to worry about creepy calls, because as soon as they call, she cocks that fucking gun and says, "Show up, bitch."
Yeah.
A line I fucking loved is when
California.
Oh, fuck, you're right. But it's California in the 90s.
It don't matter. California's always been that way.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, shit. Okay. A line I loved is when the little kid said, "God wouldn't take me." That was fucking some Omen shit right there. And later on, it's referenced again at the Robert Englund says it. When Robert Englund asked Wes Craven, how far are you in the script? And Robert Englund says that Wes Craven replies, "As far as Dylan reaching God." So that plays together really well. But Wes Craven, it's not a good fucking answer for someone asking about a script. And his, the boy you're referencing, it's his dad's funeral. This is the part when I heard that made me think of Wes Craven being the one involved in sending the letters and making the phone calls.
What do you think happened to Robert Englund?
In the movie?
Mm-hmm.
I just think he was a shitty friend and dipped. He couldn't deal with it. He either couldn't deal with it because he got freaked out by his painting, or he just didn't actually care. Because John Saxon is shown as a good friend throughout the whole movie. Even kind of in the end when he's kind of taken over and becomes Nancy's dad, he's still a good friend throughout the whole movie. As to where Robert Englund obviously cares more about his fame and playing Freddy Krueger from the scene of them walking out of the studio. Him being like, "No, I can't see you." And to be fair, they say something like he just left. He went to go do. He just disappeared.
Right. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, and I've always thought this. I'm wondering what they were trying to convey by that, because no other character in the movie just disappears without getting killed. Like we don't see Wes Craven that much. He kind of disappears, but damn, like Bob Shea. I mean, it doesn't give you that drop off. You know what I'm saying? Like Bob Shea.
Yeah, it's more of with the cast.
Right. And so it's just like, you don't hear about Bob Shea anymore because he fucking runs New Line Cinema. Why the fuck would you hear about him anymore? But Robert Englund, there's some sort, and I've never been able to put my finger on it, there's some sort of specificity to him disappearing. And I've always tried to figure out what they were trying to convey, that, because it happens right before Freddy really starts showing up.
Could it be that with drawing that painting, it scared him so bad that he started believing what Nancy or what Heather was telling him, and because he maybe thought that Freddy would come through him, that he removed himself from the situation because he thought it would protect them?
Jerry, I actually had that thought. Yeah, that's kind of, would you guys have liked to see Freddy kill Robert Englund, or would that have been too silly? Do you think that's why they maybe kept him out of the action?
May have been, or the original idea may have been a throwback to part 2. You know what I'm saying? Even though Wes Craven really didn't have any nice things to say about it, but that whole using Robert Englund as the vessel, because Robert Englund was the quote unquote entity from the, I don't know what's the best way that I can describe this. He embodied the entity over a period of time, not just the character, but the entity itself. Maybe Robert Englund was the bottle.
Man, that would have been an interesting plot point if they had a movie where, they focused on Heather in this one, which good angle, great angle. I like that. But, if they had focused on, at least a side story, or just, in an alternate reality where the story happens to be that poor actor Robert Englund is just like, holy shit, something's happening in my life and things are crazy. I think this Freddy thing is going to come through me for real. I don't know. I'd watch that.
Yeah, or like I said, going into what I was saying just a second ago about him being a bottle. What if it was, one of those aspects where he's like the conduit between the demon's world and our world, so Freddy has to come through him, and the only way, almost like he's either a conduit or he's the lock between the two, because since he's the one that plays the character, he would be the one that would, like I said before, keep it in the bottle. So if Robert Englund's gone, then there's no more cork in the bottle.
But I think it's all Wes Craven. I think because Wes Craven created him, Wes Craven is the one who dreamed all this up, wrote a script, directed it. Even though Robert Englund plays the character, it really is Wes Craven that is the creator. It's he's the father.
Yeah, and he tapped into that ether.
Yeah, so yeah. I think Robert Englund maybe... I like my theory that Wes Craven is the one who... Because at the end of the movie, it's Wes Craven signing that script and it showing up for it. It's Wes Craven, and I think the fact that it's Wes Craven's name on it is very big. I honestly would stick... I like my two theories on Wes Craven being the actual conduit and Robert Englund being scared that he's the one doing it, that he removes himself from the situation.
Yeah. I got no problems with that, homie.
So
well said. Jeez.
Very interesting. There was a couple of things I wanted to put. Heather, why did you not give any of those pages to the police so they could check for fingerprints and know that the fucking stalker knows where you live? If you know your son's a sleepwalker, take him to the damn doctor to get him medicine.
You know how hard it is to get fingerprints off a piece of paper?
I'm just saying but she didn't even tell the cops.
I mean, that would be a problem, but, the thing about it is okay, what fingerprints are based off of is they're based off the oils in your fingers. So when you put them on a surface like a gun or a knife or something like that, those things aren't porous. So therefore, the oils from your fingers don't go inside of it. The same thing with like something with a wood handle or something like that. Those generally have some type of lacquer on the outside of them to keep them from breaking down as quickly over time with constant use. So therefore, you're going to have fingerprints on top of it. A piece of paper, the oils from your fingers just soak into the paper, so you're not going to have any fingerprints.
Serial killer or watches a lot of stuff about serial killers? You be the judge. Okay. You go in the bed. Gloves in the bed. Freddy's glove. What else did I have in here? I really don't think this little kid would be that good at hiding fucking medicine from the doctor.
Never can tell, man.
Also, I don't know if y'all ever watched any of the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons. There were a couple of different cartoons, but one of them was like really goofy where he ate chili cheese dog and shit, and he would do like a Sonic says lying to the doctor, or he would say Sonic says blah 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 is no good, and all I can picture is Sonic doing that and saying lying to the doctor is no good.
Like what Sonic's doing, like a PSA.
Yes, yeah, he used to do PSAs on his old cartoons. I feel like this
really liked the more serious Sonic cartoon. It was fucking weird.
Oh, the Sonic. What they always called it, like Sonic Sat AM, I think is what it gets called.
Yeah, whatever it was, you can't really separate them because Jaleel White was the voice of both Sonics, but it was the one.
The art is so different on them, though.
Right, it was like the one that wasn't all fucked up and psychedelic. It was the one that actually looked really good, and he was like, did you ever watch these, Watson?
No, but did I do that?
Is that that guy.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he did the voice of Sonic in both of the cartoons. And so one of the cartoons was really like the one Jerry's talking about. The animation was really psychedelic for the backgrounds, and he would eat chili cheese dogs. It was more of a kid friendly kind of thing. In the other one, Sonic was like the leader of a resistance against Dr. Robotnik. And it was much more serious, and it was much more geared towards, the latter part of 10, 11 up into the teens.
Wes Craven's new Sonic.
Yeah. Hey, you ever been stabbed in the eye by an eel? Shit, me neither.
Oh, she reaches in the.
This whole generation now uses pills as breadcrumbs. And that's it. That's all I really have for this movie. Because I dropped my big thing earlier in there with Wes Craven being Freddy's conduit. And I really want to know what you guys think of the theories on Wes Craven and Robert Englund in this movie. Do you think we're right? Do you agree with us? We want to know for sure. With that being said,
Rex was the real hero here.
Rex was the best. I would have.
I mean, he took one for the team. Did you see them slashes on him twice?
Multiple times.
Rex!
I mean, he was the fucking hero.
Got all up in the guts.
If we'd have considered him the hero, I'd have gave him a 10.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
10.
Yep.
I would fucking New Line. Why don't you someone license us and fucking sell us a Rex plush? I want one. I would pay money for that.
That'd be pretty cool.
You know, Miko Hughes has actually got the sewed up Rex.
Well, let's go kidnap him and take it.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's neat. Damn.
Yeah, so sometime not in February. It'll be next month in March, most likely. We will be finishing the Horror Coliseum Freddy vs. Jason run, where we will tackle the remakes. As of right now, JP is planned to be on that one, so I will get with him and figure out when we're recording that. But that will be the last one. Then we'll step away from Horror Corridor. No, that's the group I want to leave, not the show I want to stop doing.
Yeah.
We'll step away from Horror Coliseum for a little bit to kind of just take a break from it. As we'll do with some other kind of shows. We have The Invisible Man coming up. I think that's one of the next episodes for Kill the Cast.
Nice.
We have Godzilla 2000 coming up for Underwater Kaiju from Outer Space. And we just dropped our Death Kappa episode, which is filled with great one-liners by me. I was hilarious in that episode, if I want to toot my own horn. And that movie's fucking weird. With that being said, Watson, what's coming up? Yeah, I know I've talked to you a little bit about your next episode that's coming up.
Yeah.
I wanna, and you've said it publicly, so let's tell the people what you got coming on your face.
Yeah, well, you know, I really wanted to do well. So this month in February, I'm going to try between all my attempts to dive into video editing, and I'm working on, you know, a little vlog that my son and I recorded months back of us feeding ducks and just trying to get good editing going. When I'm not working on that and trying to get better at that, I do this month want to put out an unprecedented 2 episodes in a month of Horror Corridor, and one of them will be, because I don't believe in Valentine's Day. I think it's trash, and so I just want to do some kind of like crappy exploitative, like exploitation films to sort of make fun of Valentine's Day, because I don't think it has anything to do with love. But that's
you. I bought Jerry a gift for Valentine's Day.
Well, I mean, hey, right on. I mean, I'll probably have a good time on Valentine's Day, but it won't have anything to do with love. But like,
I love Jerry.
That is not true. You will probably love parts of her.
I mean, hey, you know, I do what I do because I do what I do. But the show that I told Jerry about, folks, is I wanted to have a classy discussion of a Serbian film. And I know it's a film that a lot of people believe is super vile, and a lot of even, you know, fairly hardcore-ish fans won't watch that film on principle. But I wanted to have a discussion about it in kind of a classy way and do a walkthrough about the kind of the political underpinnings of this film and why, you know, can horror go too far, and just ask these questions about this film and about just kind of other cursory, you know, kind of give a cursory discussion about other films that are considered to be vile and what makes a film acceptable now when it was banned back in the day. Just kind of have this open kind of, I don't know, just a respectful and classy discussion about infant rape. I don't know. What do you think, Jerry?
I watched it.
Well, you know, I've had the conversation, and I've I'm not gonna say anything that'll ruin it for Kenneth, who has not watched it. One day we will tackle a Serbian film on the episode, whether Kenneth's there or not. It might just be me and Jay, but I'm hoping Kenneth will be there because I want his perspective on it.
Me too.
But the ending scene is by far way worse than the mythical baby scene. But
I agree.
The question me and Kenneth have talked about and have conversated that I think is the more important question is, what is worse? A movie like a Serbian film or a movie about Ted Bundy where there are real life victims with real life family members who are still around to watch their loved one die again, immortalized forever on the big screen for everyone to see? Is that not worse than someone who is not real, completely fictional, dying on the screen?
Right? Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
even if you have movies like Serbian Film or The Human Centipede that are so vile and evil and blah blah blah, is that worse than watching a movie based off of Ted Bundy or Richard Ramirez or fucking Zodiac? Kenneth and I have had this conversation multiple times. Whether you look at the movie as glorifying or not, there are family members to the people who died. There are real life faces for people to see.
I mean, a perfect example of it would be, going back to Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy killed over 30 women. You know what I'm saying? And at this current moment in time, how many people in the world watch Netflix? How many people in the world have Netflix? What do you say, give or take? We'll just go to the United States. How many people in the United States watch
Millions.
Netflix, give or take? Okay. Netflix is the biggest damn digital entertainment source in the United States for via the internet. It is the biggest. And right now, one of the top things for Netflix's quote-unquote marquee at the top when you open the app is a fucking documentary on Ted Bundy.
But I will say, to me, there's a difference between a documentary and
But it's the same thing because all this stuff that we got coming out right now is all hype based on that new movie. All this shit around Ted Bundy is based on two things. Number one, this year was the 30th anniversary of his execution, and number two, that new movie coming out with Zac Efron in it.
Yeah, which looks wonderful, and I can't wait to see it.
Exactly, I'm with you.
But yeah, so when you talk about vile and evil, and does horror go too far? Do you even take into consideration what's fictional and what's based on real life? Does that even come into play? Or do you find a completely fake, barely seen baby rape scene and think that's worse than a movie that has people that died in real life and it's being recreated on TV for people's enjoyment?
My friend, we are of the same mind on this, and I love how you just worded all that.
Yeah, so
yep.
And the ultimate breakdown comes down to watch Cannibal from 2006.
Oh, God, that movie.
And then go listen to the Kill the Cast episode on it.
Great show, guys.
And we can fucking get into it. So, yeah, I can't wait for Watson to drop this episode. Right now, it's my most anticipated podcast to fucking drop.
Thank you, yeah.
It's a subject I'm heavily into.
Same here, man. Absolutely, and I love everything you said, and yeah, and I've had these conversations myself, and and just speaking to you're anticipating that show, and I just want to say that I know that this episode you're going to do with JP in a month or so when you wrap up this Horror Coliseum thing. I just want to speak really quickly to the idea that I love what you guys are doing, what Kill the Cast is doing with Horror Coliseum, because it's a really good I guess, way to really promote your show in like your personal branding. Like, oh, we have our Horror Coliseum episodes, and I love the format. And I know you Jerry, you were telling me, behind the scenes, you're going to sharpen up certain aspects of the format that you want to fix, and right on. But it's a great way to catch viewers or listeners rather, and just get people. I don't know. I love this format, and I think that Kill the Cast is very smart to have these episodes on the docket when you guys do. So kudos.
Yes, thank you. We do want Horror Coliseum to be our flagship episodes.
Nice. Okay, good. I was about to say. Yep.
Between me, Kenneth, and Jay, I have a huge list of I have enough Horror Coliseum episodes written down that we could finish out the rest of the year only doing Horror Coliseums.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Like Kenneth has one for Wrong Turn versus Hills Have Eyes remake.
Oh, yes.
That we'll probably end up doing this year, maybe somewhere around the summer. Get a little summertime hillbilly action.
Ooh.
There's one I really want to do with Zodiac versus Black Dahlia Murder.
It's going to be so good.
Which are both very high class. David Fincher versus Brian De Palma serial killer action.
So good.
And there's tons. I have a 3-way I want to do of Anaconda, Lake Placid, and Deep Blue Sea.
Oh man.
I have tons. I've even got some classic horror movies I really want to do.
Kill the Cast listeners, are you hearing this? This is gold.
Yeah. Oh, I have a gigantic note in my phone that is just top to bottom. Anytime I come up with something remotely related to Kill the Cast, it goes in there. It's got just anything I can come up with in there.
And Jerry and I definitely have. We've been talking over the past few weeks about throwing in some really new and interesting content.
Watson knows about that. I told him about it. He knows.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for the because I don't want to spoil anything for people that are listening, but for you guys out there, Jerry and I definitely have got some ideas for some really, really kick-ass content that's going to be coming soon. So it's just we got to kind of iron out all the wrinkles. But other than that, trust me, we got some new stuff coming.
Yeah, stay tuned, listeners. These guys got you.
Yeah. So, with that being said, I think it's about time to go because this is getting close to hitting 3 hours, and I would like this show to be shorter than the last time Watson was on.
Yeah, that would be fine.
I got some Resident Evil 2 to get back at.
Yeah, there you go. So, thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to go on this journey. Shout out to Brandon. We're sorry he couldn't make it. We still love him. Shout out to Jay, who could not make it for medical reasons. We still love him. Shout out to Watson for stepping up and fucking joining us for this. Always a fucking pleasure with this motherfucker.
Love you guys.
Shout out to Kenneth for, being here doing his job.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks. I hope that I'm doing well at it.
Yeah. I think you are, personally.
Same here.
It's amazing how many people love my Southern accent.
It really is. People comment on it. They like it.
Yeah.
Weeks of hospitality.
Wait, you ought to come down here and hang out, man.
One day, dude.
I'll overload you with some old Southern.
One day.
Just so you know, overloading with old Southern either means you're going to get SOS, which is commonly called shit on a shingle, which is sausage gravy on top of biscuits, or he's going to come good. One of the two.
Oh, either or.
So, that's it, guys. Thank you for joining us. We love you. Check out the Facebook group. Check out the Horror Corridor podcast. Check out the Horror Corridor Facebook group. Always good times in there. Whether it's people saying they want to leave this group, Horror Corridor.
You can buy mugs and
shirts. Yeah. Did you really make mugs and shirts?
Jason Lloyd made a TeePublic page, so you can buy, and I'm buying one tonight. An I want to leave this group Horror Corridor mug, coffee mug.
Oh my God, that is fantastic. Or You can catch me schooling people on the JonBenet Ramsey murder case.
Oh, yeah,
because I be doing that shit. Shout out to Renee. Shout out to my boy Jan. He took it with stride and he learned from it, kind of. So shout out to him.
Yo.
You got to link me to this conversation.
I will see. The last one, he deleted his post, but this was on my post, so I don't think he could have deleted it. So it's on there. I'll tag you. It's fucking great. Yeah, we're out. Thank you for joining us. I'm really bad at endings because I just fucking keep going on because I want to talk for fucking ever, but I can't do it. We're out. Fucking live your life, love your life. Hail Satan. Have sex with someone in the next month just because they deserve it. Just, turn, to quote Doug Stanhope, turn that chip on their shoulder into a warm, salty paste.